like in a fake situation.
Sort of.
Constellation Training 2019-20. Residency number 1, day number 3 after lunch. There we go. I think you get performance nerves.
I do.
I think if the camera weren't on, you come right out of it, but then you look at the camera and you go, what planet is this, Venus? Early. How are you doing, Christine? A little bit of like drinking from a fire hose?
No.
Good. Then that makes you different from everyone else, because that's what they're experiencing.
I didn't absorb as much as you guys have.
Of course.
To be overwhelmed.
Exactly. Yeah. So Saturday afternoon after lunch, I'm generally going to schedule housekeeping. Just whatever things about the course I need to touch base with you about. And this first weekend, it's going to be longer because there's some things that are going to follow this residency that I have not talked with you in any detail about yet, which I need to get on board with. And there was no point in saying this stuff on Thursday. So you're lucky you get to be part of this. And we just need a little time for this. It's just the way it is. Once again, what do I want you to have handy and read often and have available? The student agreement.
I was nodding before you were done.
Well, sin symmetry, yes, but it's not going to tell you anything about how to make an appointment with me or any of that stuff. So please have your student agreement handy. Put it in your, whatever handy means to you. In your phone, in a physical binder, whatever that is, okay? Because a lot of this stuff is in there. Okay, I have to say a word about study groups, about which I have said not a word up until now. So the purpose of study groups is to give you a chance for more practice, number one. I mean, we just can't stuff enough practice into these weekends. If you are feeling ready to go up to your friends and said, I have barely started learning this modality, but I'd like to offer you a family constellation. I give you 5 stars. I would like you to start doing that. But another way to really just say, I'm brand new. It could be awful, but you're my friend and you'll forgive me. Do you have something I could work with you on? Yeah? And you guys won't be awful. I mean, there's actually, you all come with quite a bit of exposure to constellations. So even just having represented a lot, you're going to be able to be helpful to people. Yeah.
How do we do that without people?
You're going to mostly practice one-on-one, and we're going to get to one-on-one stuff by the end of the weekend. Tomorrow, that is. But you can also say, to your 10 friends, I'm doing a constellation evening. It'll be really cool. Come, so you can do that too. Okay. Or your 3 good friends, and you make them do lots of representing. Just be willing to be inelegant. Be willing to try. Your friends will be glad that you're trying to help them with their thing. And if all you do is say, I wonder if your eating thing has to do with the starvation of your grandma in World War II, and they go, that's never occurred to me. You have done your mitzvah, right? So,
I have a question.
I don't want to get too lodged in questions, but yes.
Doing this with a spouse or a child.
Try not to do too much of that right now.
Okay.
That's probably. They may not forgive you.
Okay.
Understood. Your relationship before the practice.
Okay.
It also, by the way, when you're in relationship with the person, you're functioning with blind spots in the relationship because of the nature of the relationship, right? So yeah, not the best thing to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so study group. It gives you a place to practice. It gives you a place to do this without me watching. And the number one I have noticed in these residencies when people start practicing is the performance anxiety in front of me. You want me there to help coach you and give you feedback and support you, but it's really useful to also do it in an environment with each other. You guys are getting along, you are creating a pretty safe field with each other, where I am not there to say, you should have thought of the grandfather, right? Where you can really just relax. Study group is completely student run, managed, organized. I cannot do this for you. The only thing I can provide for you is, as long as we talk about it ahead of time, I can provide you with the Zoom platform for you guys to meet on, okay? If one of you has that, then you can use someone's account here if someone here has a Zoom account. You don't all need Zoom, just one person needs to have Zoom, and you can use my account. But if someone else has it, that's fine. Yeah, there we go. So there you go. If you're needing to be in some way no, we've already gone over this. The certification plus 25 cents won't even get you a cup of coffee anymore. If we go with the old saying, there's no body that certifies you. But if you want a certification of Constellation Facilitator from me, then you have to attend at least 50% of the study groups. I need to see that you're practicing, okay? So it's going to be online unless you guys can figure out a way to do it, because we have 2 people traveling who don't live around here. If you can figure it out on a night before or a night after or a night of, not highly recommended because you're fried. And then it can be maybe done here, maybe, depends upon the schedule, or at one of your homes. But given the realities, we're probably talking online, okay?
Yeah, I can.
You will get this modeled a bit the first Zoom class. Like, how do you even do a Constellation online? So you can start getting this modeled a little bit when we have the first class. The reassurance for those of you, raise your hand if you were in a class with me with Zoom and thought Zoom was amazing for doing constellations on. I mean, it works. It's very workable.
Yeah.
It's very workable. What I've done in the handout, which we're not going to go through because I don't want to use the time for that, but do read it. Don't read it the day before the study group either. Like, try and get to this in the next few days, okay? I have now noticed the ways in which study groups get themselves in trouble. I shouldn't laugh because it's not fun when you guys all get together and then you start to get cranky with each other because whatever. But it is funny a little bit. So what I've noticed is there's some ways to keep the container better. You will notice this in there. You will also notice a proposed structure for how to set it up. You don't have to do it that way, but it is a proposed structure, and it will save time if you just use it. Here's the main thing. When you're practicing, stay in your lane. The facilitator's the facilitator. The client's the client. The representative is the representative. The observer is the observer. The main way study groups get themselves wrecked on the shoals of good intentions is when someone says, I'll facilitate, I'd like to practice today to facilitate, and then everybody else, subtly or not so subtly, tries also to facilitate. There's a way you can even step into a representation, think you know what's going on, and then in your reporting as a rep, actually be trying to stealth facilitate, and you won't even know you're doing it. Okay? The facilitator, once you've decided and agreed who's going to be the facilitator, then you all just really need to be in agreement and support of that. The facilitator can ask for any help, can ask for an assistant, for guys, I got no ideas, does anyone have an idea? They can ask for facilitating help, but otherwise you stay in your lane. It's really important. And remember Constellations, what is so much of Constellations about? Being in our proper places, right? So this is true in terms of this sort of thing as well. Beyond that, you can like structure it for say 2 or 3 hours, and you're going to have 2 personal constellations. Or you can like do a bunch of small exercises based on the stuff you learned on the weekend. Or I mean, feel free to be creative. Given that you're a busy group of people and there's a bunch of you, the simplest thing is to find a structure and use it and stick with it. It uses less time and it's less confusing for everyone. But this really is what you make of it, okay? My recommendation is a couple times a month, so about every other week, for like 2 to 3 hours. Now, if you all get on the email together and you all say, Leslie's out of her mind, there's no way I can do this, and you all agree, that's, you know, I'm not going to, like, I'm really not going to be, like, the only thing that counts is X numbers of hours of this. But it does need to be happening semi-regularly, and it needs to be kind of happening.
What was your goal for us?
Practice.
No, how often?
Oh, sorry.
I got that part.
A couple, every other week or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So before the next residency, it'd be awesome if you admit 2 to 4 times.
Okay.
And see, I'm giving a lot of room for this.
Mm-hmm.
Please not less than 2 times, because it's almost 2 months away. Okay, so 2 to 4 times. What this really helps, and not Kelly, because she's already playing a role, even though I think she'd probably do a very good job doing it, is someone like me who, if things aren't run properly, it drives me nuts. So I'm happy, usually in these circumstances, when I'm in a group like you guys, to being the main communication person. Someone needs to raise their hand to communicate with all of you and set up dates and times, okay? And sort of make it clear when a consensus has been reached, you know, that sort of thing.
So we are all one study group.
Yes, because you need all the reps. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay?
But can we meet if everybody can't meet all on the same day?
Let me get to that,
Okay,
okay?
sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, there are things here. So the ideal would be a study group that you can all go to, you know, and you find a night or a day that works for all of you. It's not every week, remember? So, so the answer is yes to your question, but I'm going to let you guys figure that out a little bit. The break in the afternoon is going to be a little bit longer so that you can, you know, fingers crossed you can actually get the first one scheduled. I have found 9 times out of 10, these things happen more often when you're in the same room and can talk to each other. Once you're released into the wild,
Survival.
the chances of these things happening goes way down. Okay? We have 2 people who have Zoom accounts. 3. It really helps to have one person manage the Zoom thing. So who would like to just say yes to that? Like delivering the Zoom link,
Yes.
letting people know, making sure it's working, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's Dinka, okay?
Dinka's our Zoom goddess.
Who would like to be the communications coordinator, in a sense? And you're the kind of person that if it's not done right, it drives you nuts.
I am usually like that, but I'm kind of in a weird place right at the moment. So
Right. It would be okay if you picked up halfway through the course. Would someone be like open if you heard it was the first half of the course, and then Christine picked it up in the second half of the
I would do
course?
it for the first half.
There you go. So you guys just figure out how you're going to pass that off and whatnot. Thank you very much. Okay. I want to address this question of multiple study groups in just a second, but it dovetails with the next topic. So any other questions specifically about study group? I'm sure you have a gabillion. My guess is that this document is going to answer most of them. Okay. How do we structure them? Who's in charge? How do we decide who's going to facilitate? Who do we decide who's going to be the client? Most of that stuff is in there. Okay. How do you feel about study group?
Excited.
Yeah. Study group for me, when I learned through NLP Marin, was like, I was always, we did it every week, every Tuesday night. I never missed it. Let's practice. Yeah. And we do crazy stuff. You can start doing pet constellations for each other. I got a new cat. It's not fitting into the household. What's going on? You start doing pet constellations when you've done each other so much that you just kind of like, I can't just deal with it. Like, can we just find something else to work on? Right? Yeah. My plants aren't thriving. Is it not enough sun? Do I not talk to them enough? They need more miracle grow. You know, this is one place where hewing to Bert Hellinger's having a serious, meaty issue doesn't have to hold all the time. Because this is really for practice. So do what serves you. And that doesn't mean don't bring serious issues to each other. But, after a while, you may be just like, I'm constellated out. Okay? Okay. The next topic is partnering. So partnering is when two of you have a commitment to get on the phone with each other occasionally. This is optional. It is not relevant to certification. It is highly recommended. The reason for recommending it is that it's a way to practice one-on-one constellations with each other on the phone or on Zoom or on FaceTime or on Skype or whatever you want to do it on. Or if you want to meet, you can meet. That's not, some of you seem to live real close to each other, in which case there's some options there. But to talk about stuff from the residency, be mutually supportive, not to remember teach or coach or advise, unless the person specifically asks for it. Okay? Just really remember, someone says, oh, I'm really having a hard time with interviewing. Don't start teaching them how to interview. Okay? Unless they say, it's been really hard for me to teach. What are one or two things you found is really working for you? In which case, by all means, be clear. One of the good things around this is really learning how to be clear about what your request is. Are you just asking for witnessing? Are you asking for help, and specifically about what? Yeah. Or do you just, I'm raw from the weekend. I still don't know what Leslie means by conscience. What do you think she means by conscience? But it's a great place to get some practice and do kind of short little chunks with each other. Not required. Partnering, the reason why I don't make this required is partnering is just not for everybody. I've just discovered there's just people for whom this is just another thing in their lives and it's too much and they blah, 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 too much. You come up with a mutual agreement on amount of time and frequency. Once a week, every other week, once a month, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you want. Yeah. And how you spend the time. Okay. So to how does this answer your question? You're not limited to study groups and to partnering. You are free people with a contact sheet. If you want to gather in other ways, or you're developing a bond with someone, or, you can't find one night in common, and so you find 3 people can do it on Tuesday and 4 can do it on Friday. You got to live with what's real. And you're invited to. One of the ways I want you to think of this class is you're developing peers and colleagues who may end up being really important to you going forward, and they may not be. It's not critical that everyone in the room becomes important to you, but if you leave even with one or two, then yeah, that's really valuable. Yeah. And so if everyone wants to partner, every time the number 7 is not divisible by anything. I really wanted one more people to register. I really wanted one more. But 7 is the way it is. I have found regularly when I partner people in groups of 3, it just doesn't work. There's something about organizing people into groups of 3 to partner. They just never get off the ground. It just doesn't happen. It's too hard. I don't know why. So here is my suggestion, is that instead of having 2 groups of 2, if everyone wants to do it, instead of having 2 groups of 2 and 1 group of 3, if there's one person here who would like to partner with 2 people. And
I can make this easy. I already know I'm not going to commit to an ongoing partnering. I would love to feel free to call any one of you anytime if I wanted to talk about something.
Anybody, let's start there. Anyone else like, no, I can't commit to doing this? Because I really do want to say that, please don't commit to things you can't commit to. Your partner is going to depend on you. Yeah? Yeah?
The Tuesday night, if you're doing the business thing, is it like every Tuesday?
No, I sent you the dates.
Okay.
There's 4 of them, usually the Tuesday after this group meets. There's one exception where they actually get switched once we start hitting the holidays.
I just have to look at the calendar.
So you're basically obligated for 2 Tuesdays a night. Never mind.
A month.
Yeah, basically a month. Yeah. I sent you an email if you have it on your phone with the dates, because I figured you didn't have the dates, because she only signed up for the business integration option yesterday or whatever it was. And raise your hand if you're doing business integration option. Yeah, so these are the 3. Everyone know what I'm talking about?
More about it.
I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to refer you to the website. It's basically a super duper cheap way. It's ridiculously inexpensive given the fact that you get 3 more coaching sessions and 4 more classes online to help build your business, because that's a strength that I bring, is working through the issues of self-employment.
Is it any business or this facilitation?
Any
business?
self-employment business.
Oh, I thought it was if you wanted to build a facilitation, a Constellation business.
You can talk to me. I mean, it's mostly going to be about constellations, obviously, given our audience.
Yes.
But if it's something close by, like body work or yoga or coaching or things like that, that's also, the principles are all the same.
When does it start?
The Tuesday, first of all, if you want to do it, you got to commit this weekend. I can't keep onboarding people later. But it starts the Tuesday after the Tuesday that we have our first Zoom meeting. So basically 2.5 weeks. Yeah. It's super duper deal. Basically it's an extra $350 for easily $800 worth of services. Between the one-on-one coaching and the time in the class and the videos and stuff like that. So if you're thinking about doing the business, seriously think about it. And we can chat during a break or something about it. I'm happy to do that.
Just to get back to the partnering thing.
Yeah, thank you.
I am historically, I'll want to do it, but realistically, I know I don't follow through well on it, because I genuinely do get so busy and like completely derailed with other stuff. And I kind of would rather focus more on the group.
The study group, the priorities. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to make it worse now, because
no, that's all right. No, it makes it better because we want honesty. And so
I love you all, but I don't want to be disappointing anybody.
Raise your hand if you really want to do partnering. Raise your hand with strength and clarity if you really want to do partnering, because I'm feeling a little bit of ambivalence in the hands raised.
So the frequency we can come
Yeah.
up with, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, all
Yes.
set, yeah.
Okay.
Right, given,
Okay.
given everything that I said, who really wants to do partnering? So the 5 people who have not mentioned. Does anyone want to do it enough that you would like to do it with 2 people? Because we've got odd numbers here. This is why I'm trying to address that.
My
Oh,
understanding
it
is
finally
that
clicked. What
Yeah.
you're saying now.
Like you're a partner with
Right,
one
right.
person, then you're a partner with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
yeah,
one,
yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
not a chart.
my understanding is that partnering is the best option to practice one-on-one.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why I think
That's why you want to do
people
it.
are better.
So
That's
you'll
fine.
do it with 2 people.
No, I mean
I don't mean at the
one-on-one.
same time, at different times.
Oh, okay.
So
So let's say I
practice-
partner you with
practice
Anne
on
and
Monday.
Okay.
let's say I partner with Anne and with you.
Right.
Then you would meet up with Anne on occasion and you would meet up with Christine on occasion.
Okay.
Because trying to get 3 people scheduled at the same time, I'm telling you, it doesn't happen. People have the best intentions, it doesn't happen. On top of the study group is what I'm saying, right?
Okay.
I've just seen it.
Mhm.
People end up,
Okay, I'm thinking now, maybe I'm doing like you and feel like getting into a WhatsApp group or something and saying, okay, who has time tomorrow? I would really like to partner up with one of you
okay,
and
you'd prefer last
practice.
minute. Okay,
Mhm.
okay, okay,
Just see if somebody has time or not.
okay.
Me too. I also would like to reach to some.
Well, you can
group
always
if
do
I
that in
can say-
addition. My question is
Yeah.
whether you want to be formally partnered now, make those appointments, make that happen. So you have someone regularly up to the next residency. You know you've got like a commitment with each other to do that. Because I promise these 3 people, probably not going to happen. It could. It could happen. But I've just seen it over and over again. The people who leave these residencies with a commitment to meet with each other and some times in their books, those are the ones that it happens with. It just observationally.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean other kinds of relationships won't happen. They will. Am I down to 4, Anne, or I'm up to 5?
I really see it happen in the way that I'm thinking
Okay.
it is happening.
Then I'm
so-
gonna, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
then
that's
do
fine.
4.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then-
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna mix things up a little bit. I'm gonna make it Christine and Judith.
Okay.
And Dinka and Serena.
Okay.
Okay? And when we do the break, you guys figure out a time or more times if you can put in a bunch or just the next one. Maybe even chat a little bit about, you can worry about preferred structure a little bit later. And then the whole group as a group, just first thing during break, I just want you to spend 5 minutes talking about study group and see if some quick consensus emerges. Okay?
And I was just curious, does anybody have WhatsApp? Do you guys have WhatsApp?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So should I create a group chat? For
I-
us?
think
I
that is
don't,
great. That's fine.
It's just an app.
But there is
That's
a
free.
Okay.
messenger or Facebook group already created.
This is the problem. Everyone uses different social media.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
why was
email
wondering
is
if-
really the way to do it because everyone has email.
Okay.
You all have each other's emails
We can
and,
talk about it later as a group.
yeah.
When we-
But if someone doesn't have like a practice of looking or checking at a particular kind of app, then that's why I say you guys don't text me. It won't work. It doesn't. I won't see it until way after the relevance to what you need. Okay. That clear as mud?
Clear.
I know that this is the trickiest bit. It's very tricky business trying to, it's a group of people and trying to make that happen. Okay. If there's anything going cattywampus, as they say, with study group or partnering, and it's making you cranky, talk to me. Let me know. Okay? And I will either help you directly or I'll help the group or whatever. Okay? Excellent. I am always here for support around that stuff. Okay, one-to-one appointments. You either have 4 coaching sessions, I guess 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have 4 coaching sessions to use by February 2nd, or you have 7 because you're in the business integration. Yeah. That means you 7 folks need to make your first appointment like tomorrow. Again, that's in the student agreement. One thing, I promise you something that makes Leslie cranky, so you're all warned ahead of time, is having to chase people to make their coaching sessions. I can see February's coming and someone still has 3. I get cranky about this. So just make a decision. You're gonna go home and you can schedule the next couple because you can schedule out a couple of months.
Oh, we can?
Yeah. I mean, for the people who are 7, you've got to do one pretty much every other week to make it happen. Yeah. For the 4, it's about once a month. Okay. So I invite you, and remember what I said in the student agreement around, the people who do a little report to me before those coaching sessions get a lot more out of them. Yeah. And you can refer to that bit in the student agreement if that's not ringing a bell.
So if you do the business, then it's 7.
7, yeah, it's 3 more. Yeah. I charge $175 for an hour-long coaching session. So 3 of those right there is almost $600 worth of services. Yeah, I'm saying. I mean, it's like kind of a no-brainer at some level. Okay. What does that mean? I love it when I look at my own notes and I'm like, what does that mean? Oh, I remember that. Okay. Short constellation exercises. You've seen some now. You've seen me do you and your ancestors. Yeah. You saw the group one in the beginning with Hellinger and the teachers and your peer. Yeah. They're kind of short. We're going to do more today and tomorrow. They're a different way of doing constellations. It's not about, I've got this problem and then we do a long personal constellation, but it's still using, yours was actually a really good example of a short constellation exercise this morning. So I want you all to do some before the end of the course, to come up with one. Okay? A short constellation, either it's in dyads or triads in small groups, or a whole group thing that's kind of a short thing, or it's for everybody, it's a guided meditation, whatever. So 3 or 4 of you are going to do that at the next residency.
Okay.
And then the remaining group will do it in the 3rd residency. Okay, so you'll just lead them for us. Okay? So who feels like, damn, let's get this out of the way. I want to do it the next Grace. Number 2.
I think I do too.
Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly. Is that the first time I noticed that? Have you guys noticed this already? Grace Kelly and Serena. We can do a 4th, or we can do 4 on the 3rd one.
I could do it as well.
Okay, so we'll do Anna. And then, so it's going to be Christine and Judith. And who's the other person? And Tinka.
And what is this number 3? The 3rd?
It's the 3rd residency,
Okay.
our 3rd gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent.
Are we going to get to do this next weekend too?
What do you mean?
I feel like we're on such a roll. I don't want to wait another 2 months before we get together.
I know. Well, we have the Zoom meetings, you have the study groups, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
I'm sorry for being dense.
That's right.
Can you tell me what it is that I'm signed up for here?
To do a small constellation exercise to lead something. Okay? So, go off into pairs and it's you and your ancestors. I was giving a few examples of that.
I was
But
actually planning to do one tomorrow because I'm tomorrow morning the one who's starting.
right, but that's going to be super short.
Yes.
So that's 2 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
These can be as long as 30 minutes.
Okay.
So this is more of a chewy exercise.
Oh,
Like you might do at a workshop. or something like that. Okay. So 30 minutes. And if you're wondering, how do I come up with this? One good way to do it is start out actually with your goal. What's the outcome that I would like to help people with, and then back engineer the exercise to try and meet the goal. Yeah. So I would like people to, we'll just borrow from the Constellation yesterday, which is to see their ancestors as something more than mere victims. Remember from the second Constellation. Let's say that's your goal. How would you back engineer a little exercise to help people feel that or notice that a little bit? Okay? So start out with the goal that you would like, a little goal, not big, not all the guts on the floor, because it's a little thing. You want to keep it chunk sized properly for people's emotional resiliency. Fair warning, I've done plenty of small exercise and all of a sudden I was cleaning up the guts off the floor. It happens. Best intentions. And don't worry, I'll help you with that, or you'll manage it, or whatever. Because it's such a powerful modality, and people's hearts get touched, and all of a sudden they're dealing with their deepest grief, and it's just the way it is. Yeah? Everyone feel like you know what I'm
Yes.
doing
So
here?
I'm sorry. You want us to come up with a structure, or
And lead.
like
A
I think
short
it's the same
exercise.
structure, for example, of what we did yesterday, but different roles.
Yeah, it can be a whole group thing. Yeah. So for instance, a goal could be something like, that's probably a little too heavy, but let's say you're a yoga person and you know about chakras. Let's just say that. We even have the right number of people here. And you'll be a first chakra, you'll be a second chakra, you'll be a third chakra, you'll be a fourth chakra, and everyone just stands in a circle and reports out, and then have everybody switch and change places and feel like first chakra, oh, I feel so heavy, and I love the eighth chakra, or whatever it is, and then go around. So that would be a little exercise. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You can keep it lighthearted. It can even be a little silly. That's okay, as long as it's got some meat. Everyone's sort of, this is where you get to be creative. You get to bring your own gifts and skills and perspectives on things. You know, if you're a body worker, different parts of the body. I love that you did, body, heart, mind, spirit. That was a nice little set of archetypes. Working with archetypes can be a great little exercises. Okay, those are just some ideas. Okay, and you get to lead it so that if people understand the exercise, that can be trickier. That do you have to draw a picture? Do you have to, how do you explain it and lead it and take them through do you just watch? Do you participate? It varies depending upon the exercise. Okay. Okay, so next Zoom classes, this is where I remind about dates. Zoom class is Tuesday. And theoretically, you all have this in your calendars. You have the Zoom link within your student agreement. I'll probably send out a reminder anyway, but
Tuesday, 8.
residency number 2
50.
is December 5th to 8th. Between now and then, my Berkeley constellations, for those of you who are local, are October 24th, November 8th, and November 24th, 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. Okay. Should have started a new page for this. Other things I'll put up here. I really want to remind you all, put in your heart, check your dates, see if it feels like a good fit. The West Coast Intensive, I know it's another major financial investment after this financial investment, but the bang for the buck is insane. You will fall in love with Susie Tucker. Swear to God, I could marry that woman tomorrow. And Jane Peterson is a genius at this work. They are just, to have them local, and I hear the third one is okay too. But it's not there to see me. You already see me. There's, you're not. That's not what you're there for. I suggest you just look at your calendar now. Remember, $300 off through January 22nd. No, I'm sorry. The 50% discount for being in this class for all of my services does not apply to this. Okay, it's a different business. It's a different structure. Okay.
How much is it?
Depends upon whether you're a commuter, you're a lodger. Go to the website and you'll. It's commensurate
Comparable
with
to
the
this?
4 days, and it's less than this
Okay.
for what it's worth. Or about half of this.
Okay.
And the nice thing for you here is if you're willing to put up with it, you can commute, and then save a little bit of money. There's doubles and singles and stuff like that, but it's a residential experience. Okay. See questions in
Well,
your
I'm like,
eyes.
I live.
It's in San
If I
Rafael.
lived here, you mean?
Oh, that's right. Sorry, you don't
Okay,
live
I'm
here.
like.
My apologies.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a stay overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to remind you that the advanced training starts March. It's scheduled specifically to basically be something you can move into. If you want to move into greater practice, confidence, expertise with people who are at a high level of the work, you can get 15% off of that as long as you sign up for it while you're in this class. Yeah. So if that's looking interesting. Okay.
Leslie, the 24th of November is a Sunday, so is that correct? For your
Are you sure?
I'm looking at it right
for your
now.
class, for your Kandahar, not Kandahar.
Constellation.
No. What's
Oh,
Rujamandir.
Rujamandir.
I'll double check during the break.
Okay.
Thank you. And of course, 15% off all other services. But my God, if you're the work you're getting here, you're really gonna like, oh, I'm gonna go get another Constellation and just there's a limit to this sort of thing. Remember to give me feedback, what you need. You can email me after the class. Let me know. Any housekeeping questions? Those are all the housekeeping, and that's way longer than it's going to be at future residency. There's mostly I'm just going to do this kind of stuff.
And are you going to continue to do it like when we meet here? It'll be like how we did it this weekend. Like it was the Thursday, the Rujamandir.
No.
So it won't always be.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
like
The
that?
next ones are not on the
Bummer.
weekend. Sorry. It's their limitations, my limitations. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's it on that. Everyone breathe. Everyone move. That conversation about study group and partnering is always funky. Just the way it is. Because it's complicated. And you're all already so busy. And I really respect everyone's reception of that information and the way that landed. Okay. Well, we're going to be doing a constellation.
Oh, no, I know.
If we need the fan on, and it can always be moved to another corner of the room or whatever, if there are people who are cold and people who are hot. Okay, come on back. We'll have a proper break after the constellation. So, like I said, everyone's going to get a Constellation this weekend, so anyone who doesn't go today will go tomorrow. But it does sound to me like Grace, who explicitly asked, and Serena, who is already constellating.
Can you tell?
I mean, you can get a feel for the people who are kind of like the things ready to happen. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that other people might not be ready to go. And since Grace raised her hand early, let's start with Grace. And do we have your picture up here anywhere?
Not yet.
Oh, that's right. We didn't report back. Right. Rats. That would have saved me some time.
A little bit.
Because I know Serena's history now.
That's true.
Okay, what can we help you with?
Well, you know, but not everybody else knows. I was recently diagnosed with connective tissue disorder that results in an aortic aneurysm, an aortic dilation. So I have the beginnings of it. This is a genetic thing that has, my father died of it at 53. My little nephew has it very severely since birth, so it's a family thing. I would like to, I'm sure there's a cause beneath it, so I would like to eliminate that from my family lineage going forward, from my own and my descendants' lives, the effects of it.
So I was so with you until the word eliminate came up.
I could wish, right? But
Before you did, it landed in my body in such a funny way. Feel the word eliminate in your body. It almost felt like stabby. It had a funny feeling. That's a feeling you use the word eliminate.
well, it feels like it goes straight to how I connect to the whole, you know, it's a disorder of connection that affects the heart. And there's so much cutting people off
Exactly.
in my family.
Because what your system is longing for is not elimination, that's its problem, it's inclusion.
Yes.
Now I want to cry. So notice how words make your body feel. I mean, no, eliminate's a perfectly fine word. It's a word. We use it, right? But it had some resonance on it. And I happen to know some history that you all don't know yet, which is there's a lot of sort of banishing and cutting off in an extraordinary levels, like unusual levels in Grace's family. It almost felt like eliminate felt like your mother's voice. It almost didn't sound like your voice. The way you articulated it,
Yeah.
almost like you changed personalities for a second.
Yeah, I could totally, the energy of, like, I want nothing to do with this disease. I want
Even
it,
the gesture.
like, yeah.
Yeah. How much does your mom do that? Either literally or metaphorically.
Yeah, it's totally her.
Yeah. So just a couple words so they know what your mom did to you.
So 28 years ago, my mom cut off all contact, disowned, discredited, cut off, and demanded that everybody who knew me from my prior life, childhood, friends, family, my brothers, extended family, no one's been allowed to talk with me, and nobody has in 28 years until, and just like
before you move on, hold off to the until. Let that land with the group. And that's crazy land. And everyone was obedient to her mother's wishes.
Non-family members as well.
close family friends, that we grew up with, all of that.
And that means her kids have had no relationship with the larger family because they were born after this.
They were 2 and 3.
Yeah. I mean, she had to have, I don't know, killed somebody for this kind of punishment. I mean, Grace would have had to have done something terrible.
Should I say
She
what I
didn't.
did?
Oh, you did nothing. What did you do? Or what triggered the response?
What triggered it was that my younger brother and I had a conversation about our family in which I said our father was sexually inappropriate with me. And he repeated that to my mother, and that was that.
Wow.
That was the thing she couldn't.
Remind me where you are in your sibling lineup, please, first. Of
3.
Boy, girl.
Me, girl, and then 2 more boys.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I should be doing this on the board. Just so yeah, that's all right. I think I'm just, instead of doing it in a way that you can't see what I'm doing, I'll do it up here just so you can see it. I'm not going to do an exhaustive interview. I'm going to do the short interview because we're going to hear from you on all that. But I just want to demonstrate, because you were asking I want to see more about how you're doing this.
Yeah, very good.
So, and I do it backwards. Sorry, everybody. Sexually inappropriate was the way you put it. I'm just using her language. And then cut off. Okay, so it's really simple version. We're not doing the exhaustive thing. Okay. And then you said until?
In the last 9 or 10 months, 7 people, unbeknownst to each other, have broken the rules and reached out and contacted me. And my mother has then cut off all of them from her life in punishment for speaking with me.
And you've been saying that the more constellations you do, the more people reach out to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. She keeps sending me these miracle emails. You'll never believe who reached out to me yesterday.
Including on Monday, I had my first conversation with my youngest brother in years.
And the ones, so your father died of this, is that who you said? And just give me a 1-word version of the disease, just so I have a shorthand for it.
Which is called connective tissue disorder.
Oh gosh, CCD?
Just say CTD.
Excellent.
Yeah.
CTD, CTD, and then a nephew.
This guy's son.
Very bad. And I put quotes when I'm actually quoting the client every once in a while. That's important. Okay. And if I remember, one of these guys is really having a hard time in life, especially.
Yeah, this guy's in liver failure now.
Okay.
They're both alcoholics. This one is recovered, but it's too late. He's in liver failure, waiting for liver or will die.
So it's not simply that she's had a connection with a brother who she hasn't heard from for years, but he's going to probably die soon. So it's just in time. So this is very tender business.
And the thing that connected us is my new diagnosis, because the only way to get genetic testing that would let my children know their risk is if we combine his son's information with my information.
Oh, wow. It's a whole nother connection.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I just kept on hearing connective tissue, another connection, a connection, and a connection. And so this word is now like buzzing around in my head. Say that again, because I completely missed it.
What provoked me and my brother to talk was that the only way I can get good genetic information to inform my children of their risk is to combine my genetics with this one's.
Okay, to see if there's a genetic connection.
So he's agreed
Connection. Connective tissue disorder.
of the heart.
Of the heart.
Wow.
This is why I react to the word eliminate, because I'm certain that this is just a symptom of something that's been eliminated and needs to be included. So how do we include? And then if there's still lingering genetic realities, then we bow to that fate. I mean, do you like the German cities that have recreated down to the last brick how it used to look, but it was all built in the 1960s? Or do you like the ones that have actually left some of the ruins so you can see? Going to Munich was such a weird experience, and all these Baroque churches are only 50 years old.
Potsdam.
It's a very strange experience. Yeah? Do we want to eliminate or do we want to include? So mostly I just want to share my process. I'm just in the soup of feeling all this a little bit, and the tenderness of my heart and the awe of this. Okay, so this is not hard. We're focused on dad's side because this comes through dad's side. Your mother does not have this disease, even though your mother has this striking behavior that would normally give us all our attention to your mother, right?
Striking. That's a big word.
What is the main ethnicity up here?
They're Hungarian.
And how far back do we have to go to find the most recent immigrants?
Grandparents.
These? So they were born in Hungary.
Yes, they came here as infant toddlers.
Okay, so their parents brought them.
Yeah.
And do you know the reason why they came?
Yes. Hardship. Looking.
Before you answer, I just want to say, there's something here and I don't have it yet. So we have, this is again what I was saying to you during the interviews. This is interesting information, but it's just symptoms. So there's something earlier. This is not causative, it's symptom. Yeah. So I'm just going, what happened up here? And she may know, she may not know.
So you're looking for the event.
I heard stories.
Usually an event.
Okay.
An event. Set of behaviors. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Can you answer my question? I'm sorry.
A couple of years before World War I, and they talked a lot about food rationing, and there was a lot of conflict and poverty. So they were looking for a better life.
Yeah. Where did they land in the U.S.?
Ohio.
Classic. Any major disasters up here that you know of? Whole family died in the house fire. Lots of dead children. Other than the poverty, which itself can be.
The only thing that struck me, I have to look at that.
That's right.
So, dad's this
is dad.
My dad, but his dad's mom. So this one who immigrated over. This guy came in 1909 and left his wife alone with a 2-year-old infant.
This wife.
Yeah.
Right.
Then she came over and he right away died of alcoholism. So she was alone again. So she immediately married a man, like within 3 months, whose wife had just died in childbirth.
Wow.
So she took on the care of his 2 children, and she had 2. And a handful of years later, he divorced her in a time when nobody got divorced. So she was essentially abandoned.
Okay.
But your grandfather was from that original parent.
So I'm going to have to ask people to let me. Sorry. Did he lose his father when he was young? Do you know how young?
10.
Do you know, did you say no? You said heart attack? You said what?
His father died of alcoholism.
Oh,
listed
God.
On the birth certificate. Oh, everybody's an alcoholic all the way down there.
Okay. Alcoholism. So what that tells me, we're not going to find the event because he's an alcoholic due to something up here. All right. So there's a point where I say, you all know the reference turtles all the way down? You know that reference? What does the earth sit on? The turtle. Well, what does the turtle sit on? And the elder says it's just turtles all the way down. There's a place where like we got to put Adam and Eve in there, right? Which we're not going to do. And then you say, well, how will I work with that? Right? When we're not going to deal with the origin in and of itself. So there's a way in which, even though I'm sort of dismissing this as symptom, but a symptom can become, in a sense, an origin. In the sense of we can't get back to, I don't know, all the Cossacks coming through and killing everyone in the village or whatever it was, right? They're not Jewish, right?
No, they're Catholic.
Okay.
And prior to all the Hungarians, all I know is further back than that, they came from Russia.
They're Slavs.
They're Slavs of some sort.
Was he abused or sexually abused by anybody?
Not that I know of, but he over-sexualized everything and was also alcoholic. And there was lots of, in my generation, or with me, there was lots of sexual abuse that wasn't perpetrated inside
But
the
it's
family,
part of the field, so it gets drawn in.
and it wasn't protected.
Yeah. There's a way in which perpetrators have a scent for a family system for which this will be, in a sense, allowed or permitted or brought in. Not at a literal level, not at a conscious level, but like, oh, this is a fertile system for me doing this penetration in. Yeah? It's of like kind. It's a dark rapport.
Yeah.
It's like alcoholics marrying alcoholics or that sort of thing. Okay, so give me a second here. I'm stepping into this. This is when I'm talking to a client, I'll say, just every once in a while, I'm going to go quiet. So I need to feel this. And that's without having to say, please shut up for a little bit. It's a nice way to say, I need some quiet. I step into this and there's so much grief. And the heart, right? And it for me, you could have rage, you could have violence, you could have fear, but the main feeling for me is grief. And I step into this. And it does feel like this. Fathers, 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 father. And it's hitting your nephew, so boy. So it's the father, so it's fathers, 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 fathers in his case. Yeah.
And this connective tissue disorder hits boys harder and is more fatal for boys, so it's my son.
Yeah, so you're worried for your son. Okay, that's important. You're really doing this on behalf of your kids. Adult children?
Yes.
One boy and one girl?
Yes.
One man and one woman?
Yes.
They're like, hey, we're not boys or girls anymore. On the other hand, his father's not part of it. I like this.
Oh, right. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's his mother.
I wouldn't mind doing it on behalf of this nephew I've never met.
How old is he?
16. He's having open heart surgery this year. Quite recently.
Yes. Yes. I got a big yes on that. And here's the reason why. There's a question here around what do we have authority to constellate? We haven't raised this issue yet. It's a little bit of an advanced issue, but you'll hit it eventually. Someone will say, my aunt still drinks and I want to do a constellation for her. And you'll go, oh, I'm not sure about that, right? So by and large, we do not do constellations for people's adult acquaintances or family, if they're in a position to consent to, to having one. Like straight off the book. If you said, my brother really needs one, but if I asked him, he'd never let me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, then we're not.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing it. Also, people were not, it might be nice to do a constellation for Donald Trump. Not our business. It's not our business. Yeah. Next door neighbor, not our business. Yeah. Have some sense of boundaries around that. Adult children, generally speaking, once they've hit 21 to 25, they get to make their own choices. So they're in the adult space. It's a gray area in there. There's lots of gray areas. There's gray areas around doing it for parents who are, maybe don't have all their faculties anymore. So it's gray area. And in those circumstances, as a facilitator, you want to step into, and in my crazy NLP class, we had pendulum work. And we would learn to ask the question, is it in order for me to? Whatever, fill in the blank. I learned to have an internal kind of vibe for that. Is it in order for me to? So she said this, and my muscle memory, my emotional memory did, is it in order? And it went a big yes. He's 16 years old. She's as aunt, she has authority to stand on his side and do something on his behalf. Okay. Also, there is something about when life or death is at stake. Then that sort of uggs, yeah. There's something about dad around how hard life has been for him generally, and a cry for something here that I can just feel when I step into it. I have a very tender place for children in Constellation. For those of you who were there the other night, we were talking about the little boy who was having a hard time with food. Okay, so, and the good news is that if we help him, then it's for everybody, it's for you, it's, it supports them, right? Yeah, because it's all what? Connected. Yeah, I got a big yes, I got a big heart swell with that. Start again. Okay, so we're gonna try and get started. So this was a better teaching demo for me on doing an interview than the 4-1 the other day where I was a little like, and it's not comprehensive. I didn't even look at mom's side at all because this condition is up dad's side. I didn't see the point. And I didn't ask, is there a suicide? Is there this? Is there that? Is there that? There can be a place for that, but we're also trying to keep things a little succinct here.
Now, what did you mean when you
So
started?
we're going to start in. Sorry. If you come up with questions along the way that seem really important, write them down, bookmark them for afterwards. I can't start without bursting into tears. I get near the system and I start to decomp a little bit. Decompensate a little bit. So I'm going to give that back to you. Into the facilitator role. This will happen to you. You'll step into the system and all of a sudden you're in something. You got to stay in your role as the facilitator. It's useful to get that information, but then okay. So I would like you to choose a representative for this great grandfather. And so one for that and one for connection. And anyone, sit down 1 second. I just, oh shoot. There's something else I wanted to do. I'm sorry. My apologies. There's something else I really, really, really wanted to do. a different way of doing our discussion after the constellations. So I'm just going to put the questions up, and I want you to just sort of be noticing these as we go through the constellation, okay? Rather than just kind of a vague conversation afterwards. Main orders of love involved and their corrections. Like, how did we get things back into order with the disordered orders of love? What are the moments of main shift? What did we do that let something change or soften? No? Or adjust or open or move away or come closer? Memorable healing sentences. One from yesterday was, "You are big, I'm small." Yeah, I want you to start, I want to ask the questions, you start lodging some of them for yourself. Main entanglement. And we're not going to answer all these questions, but these are questions for you, and we will talk about some of them. And then the last one is that I have is, when did you see information arise that I did not get from the interview, but is coming from the field? Okay. And by that, I don't mean dates and places and names, but like, oh, she was heartbroken when he left her. Yeah, or the main focus of this is not what we thought it was, it's this other thing. Yeah, okay. So that's one thing. And second thing, before I invite the representative to invite people to have roles, I just want to make a practice of asking, is there someone right now who would prefer not to represent? So that they're not in the position of asking someone and you either feeling pressured or having to decline to their face. So take a moment, is it in order? And if it isn't, say so, in which case you can now carry on.
Would you be my great grandfather? Should I please her?
Sure. Him. By and large, we want to invite representatives to start with their eyes open and their hands by their side. There's a real reason for this, which is that so much about constellations is seen. It's seen. And a lot of people do have associated, like, oh, this is the time for me to center and turn in and ground and all that sort of stuff. But by and large, we actually want you to be really neutral and really simple and not try too hard. And unless the role may call for you to close your eyes, that does happen, of course. But if it doesn't, I invite people to start with their eyes open. See your connection? Yeah? And this is great-grandfather. Father, great-grandfather. Father's father's father. That's often the way I will do it, by the way. I don't talk about grandfathers or great-grandfathers. I will say father's father's father, so that we're keeping track and it actually keeps the meaningfulness of the relationship. So we're dealing with the father lineage here. Great-grandfather, how are you, please?
Standing pretty sturdy and
Yeah,
looking down there.
you sure are.
I try to look at connection. Kind of hard to see.
When you do look, what happens? You do that blinky blinky thing, yeah.
It feels like a focus in front of her.
How are you, connection?
I keep leaning towards this one. And I'm very alert and very interested. And once this one got centered in the roll, I got just a flush of warmth from my belly to my heart. I don't have any thoughts, which is really interesting.
Well, you're an abstract concept. It's not quite like being a person. So whose body feels up to being the dead ones? No? And you can tell them where to lay or how to lay or whatever. Be in the spot that you're looking at.
When she started talking, my view went a little bit further
Okay.
there. But I also like to see her feet.
Is that okay? Yeah. Oh boy. Would you go over to that, go around and go to that one? Okay. Just have a seat. We just keep on ending up with the client in the middle of the action. We're supposed to be getting a little distance. Would a pillow be useful for you, my dear? For your body?
No,
You're good?
Just trying to give you more space.
No, they're fine. So an answer to the question, field info. Yes. Right. This arose, whatever this is, this came from the field of the constellation, that there's some death event. It's very important. Oh. Didn't come out of the interview. Real Grace over there, how are you with this? What do you feel?
As soon as the
No.
dead
What do you feel? Yeah.
said,
Great Grandpa, how are you, please?
I'm getting a little nauseous.
Feeling a little nauseous?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to take this, too literally at this point, but nausea is often a physiology in constellations for guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That had an energy, okay, a little Kundalini release. The one on the floor, what are you experiencing, please?
This pull,
Oh, really?
I want to touch whatever's here.
Okay.
Otherwise, this one is just calm.
Would you open your eyes for a moment and look at Great Grandpa?
I don't feel any anger or sadness.
Do you recognize that one? Do you have a connection?
Not, I don't know. I'm not clear on that.
Okay.
I don't feel particularly like, oh, yeah, there you are.
But you do see them.
I see them.
Yeah. Okay. What is it like to be seen by that one, great grandfather?
I like it.
You like it? Mm-hmm. Can you say it's good to be seen by you?
It's good to be seen by you, and I like to surprise.
Interesting.
I'm definitely aware of something. not necessarily you, because, but this is like super strong.
So go ahead and look at connection. You may be a person. This one's treating you more like a person. Just to let you know, sometimes things happen, and the way a person's kind of presence remains in the system is like connection in the complicated relationship, connection in this family could actually represent a lost person, or it's something. It could be like a person behind that. It's often a person behind anger or depression. And then the constellation, the person will crystallize. I'll give you an example of that when we're done. Sometimes abstract concepts stay abstract concepts, and sometimes they become the people. This is feeling a little bit more like a person interaction.
And I have the urge to sit and stroke.
Go for it. Whatever feels right. Great grandfather, what's going on for you?
Don't take my foot.
It went away, and I'm feeling I'm not deserving to be seen.
Not deserving to be seen. How are you doing, Grace?
Something about this one is really.
Yeah. That's interesting. You didn't even say it. You just touched your heart. Yeah. So what we have here, we have a story, right? But functionally, it's an exclusion. And it doesn't, I don't mean that exactly the way we mean when we say, we've excluded somebody, yeah? But the fact that she married someone else and just the people through circumstances get lost or something, and functionally, systemically, it's an exclusion. Exclusions are very strong events. Often, 9 times out of 10, all we're doing is re-including excluded things, right? Events, people. Connection, how are you? What's happening for you?
I love this one. I just love this one. And I kind of can't believe I get to touch this one and have this one touch me.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm supposed to, I feel like I want to drift off, but being stroked is making me like kind of stay here.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll keep doing that for a little bit.
It's not bad. It's just.
Yeah, but you don't drift off completely.
Right.
And you like this one's presence otherwise?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Could great grandfather and connection just look at each other? So at this point, I need to do some testing. Okay, I can figure this out a little bit. So, I'm going to try a test, and I trust the representatives report back to me. So connection, can you say to the great grandfather, just try this word and then let me know how it feels? Husband.
Husband.
How is that?
I think it's so.
How is it for you, great grandfather, to hear that?
Husband.
And then the double test would be just try responding with wife.
Wife.
How's that? Okay.
He's, I know husband, but he's gone. He's gone.
And he'll leave soon.
Okay.
In a more permanent way, right?
Yeah, but he's
Yeah.
this was the straw that broke the camel's back.
So I'm going to throw out a theory, and I want to let you know this theory is coming out of having done thousands of constellations. There's no reason why you should have a hold of this, but it is partly what one calls intuition, and it may be off as well. So connection or great-grandmother. Just as I share this theory, just let me know how it lands, okay? The great-grandfather left and went to the United States, left you behind, and this is a child who died in Hungary before you could bring them all to the United States. It might be somewhat related somehow to that separation. At the very least, you'd have to deal with this grief by yourself. Okay? Because this is coming up as a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like, it's not even very subtle. So can you just try into the space? Before we get to any accusations or anything, I was left with my grief.
I was left with my grief.
All by myself.
All by myself.
With apparently your grandfather and another child? Because you said she came with two, right? So with two children to care for.
With two children to care for.
So it looks like there might have been a third. Okay. How are you doing?
Feels risen. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
How you doing, great grandpa?
It's just when she said he's gone. And I felt excluded. Now it's quite judged.
So as this information is coming through here, I'm feeling into the quality of the guilt. Because sometimes guilt is like someone did something really wrong, right? And amends somehow need to be made, okay? There are other kinds of guilt that aren't like that. They're just kind of the circumstances, right? And yes, it's feeling like the latter. I'm not feeling, in some sense, as someone who like dropped the baby, even though that's, that's a real guilt. That's a real like guilt. Versus, the baby died of the Spanish flu, and there's nothing anyone could do. Right? The quality of the guilt is going to be different.
That very much felt like that.
Yeah, this like
because
you
it
had
wasn't
to go.
honoring it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was thinking the guilt, and because it was also like a bowing down, and I couldn't help.
Yeah.
I wasn't there to
Yeah.
help.
I mean, only imagine a man who leaves on these journeys. They don't have Skype, right? Right? And he leaves and he has 3, and when she comes, he has 2. Who would not think they had made a mistake? So just look at your husband, and husband, let your wife's, just see your wife's look for a moment. By the way, she's not doing any judgment over here. Can you say, and real clean, no anything, just when you left there were 3, and when we were reunited there were 2.
It's gonna take me a second to say
Yeah,
that.
take your time.
When you left, there were 3, and when we were reunited, there were 2.
And in some sense, his grief is going to be worse because at least you got to bury the body. And have the community mourn in Hungarian. You say, husband, it was terrible for me.
Oh, husband, that was terrible.
I think it may have been more terrible.
And I think it may have been more terrible for you.
You didn't get to mourn.
You didn't get to mourn.
Come see our lost child.
Come see our lost child.
And look at your child and say, this is your papa.
This is your papa. Mm-hmm.
You get a strong hit with this particular. Because that fits. Maybe even the firstborn son.
I like you.
Say hi, Papa.
Hi, Papa.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I missed you when you left.
I missed you when you left.
But I'm okay now.
But I'm okay now.
And again, the dead are showing up. It's pretty okay. By the way, that is not always the case. Believe me, there are the unpeaceful dead, and we often have to deal with that in Constellation. But this is also not uncommon.
I like you.
I like you too. I'm proud of you. You're my son. Yeah.
I like having a good daddy.
Daddy, I understand what you had to do.
Daddy, I understand what you had to do.
Because you take the family from Hungary.
Because you take the family from Hungary.
None of them will be hungry again.
None of them will be hungry again.
With the poverty.
With the pot, what?
Nothing. I had used Hungary twice in the country and the hunger. Just didn't mean to do that.
I'm happy they have better things.
Yeah.
I wish I would have
Mm.
I have enough now.
Say, I have great grand nieces and nephews who are thriving in America.
I have great grandnieces who are thriving in America.
Don't have to worry about poverty.
and don't have to worry about poverty.
It makes me very happy.
And that makes me very happy and proud.
Something here broke the bond. And so there was all that crazy stuff. Your grandmother, great-grandmother remarried and died. It's just kind of dominoed.
Mhm. All the grief feels really resonant. There's something about firstborn sons that just with other metaphoric associations.
Yeah, and all kinds of cultural things that are not so useful.
Mhm.
But there's, something about the first child. There just is. Which the second and third always get to resent. The oldest four.
Leslie, I just want to say
Please.
I feel found.
Yeah, say that.
I feel found.
I was lost and now I'm found.
I was lost and now I'm found. You found us.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to husband. It was so hard what we had to do. It was so brave what you did.
And it broke something in our relationship we couldn't get back.
And it broke something in our relationship we couldn't get back.
It's good to see you again, husband.
It's good to see you again, husband.
It's good to see you again.
It is good to see you.
We had a firstborn.
We had a firstborn son. It was so sweet.
You say yes, we did.
Yes, we did. Thank you. We did what we had to do.
Immigration is filled with these very small personal tragedies. You see it over and over again. Again, there's no Skype, there's no. And they have to endure. They come and they have to endure. Christina, ready for your first official representation in the class? Sure. And one of you guys, I need two. Yeah, okay, but the two of you stand shoulder to shoulder, kind of over by where the is already.
Another one.
So before we focus on this too much, because there's some focusing I want you to do there, look over here for a second. See the people you come from. Your great-grandfather and your great-grandmother, and it would be his great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother, right? So can you just say to your nephew, this is your great-great-grandfather and your great-great-grandmother.
Nephew, this is your great great grandfather. This is your great great grandfather.
They endured a great deal.
They endured a great deal.
This is like a great great grand uncle or something like that.
This is your great great grand uncle.
Grand uncle, I know you're doing the peaceful dead thing, but can you just see the evidence that life endures beyond it? And say, hi, great great grandniece, something like that, and great great grandnephew.
Hi, great grandniece and great great grandnephew. I felt them.
Yeah, yeah. It's good to see you thriving.
It's good to see you thriving. It's good to see you be.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because we know the nephew's struggling.
It's good to be seen.
And I just want to add in, just in terms of holding this young man, 16-year-old kid in our hearts. What's his first name?
Evan.
Evan. Not only is he looking at his own mortality, but his father's dying.
Uh.
More than any 16-year-old should be dealing with, right? Mm-hmm. So you're doing a good aunt job. Yeah. So one on the floor. Can you just say to both of them, in particular your great great grandnephew, you have my blessing and support.
You have my blessing and support.
Thank you.
Because remember, even though this one's recovered as a child, this one's very senior to both of you. One on the floor, just go, I'm bigger than you.
I'm much bigger than you.
Great great grandfather, we started with you. How is it to see these two?
Good, it feels friendly.
How about just this? Leave this with us. Leave this with us. How are you looking at them?
Oh, it makes me so happy. Whatever it was, it's worth it. So worth it. I'm concerned also. I want this one. I want this one to run and jump and thrive. But it's so almost mind-blowing to see them.
The same sentence, leave it with us.
Leave it with us.
And the response to that is leave it with us.
Um,
Just different than elimination. On behalf of you and your nephew, can you just say, Grace's representative, thank you for taking the journey.
Thank you for taking the journey.
I honor what it cost you,
I honor what it costs,
and I leave it with you
and I leave it with you.
with respect and love.
I bow to you.
So Evan, how are you doing?
Doing good. I'm feeling just like very warm and just very, very connected.
So And could you do this on your heart? Yeah. As you look at the people who gave you life. Would you like to? Yes. Yes, of course you would. So, you guys know the words by now? You need help with it? Thank you for the honor.
Mm. Mm.
And then while you're sort of bowing to all of this, you're bowing to the ones in between as well, and everything that they continue to carry forward.
I have a photograph of this one laid out in an open casket, surrounded by children and adults, and
Old school funeral.
yeah, in the middle of a dirt road in a small town. So, but I'd never seen it as connection, just even in death to be surrounded by someone.
And now they're doing it for this,
Mm-hmm.
that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it amazing how we can cry for someone who died like 150 years ago?
Yeah.
It's just astonishing. It's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last movement, I'm going to ask the great-grandparents and the dead to rise. Take your time. Rock your body. And I'm going to invite you guys just come a little forward, a little bit closer to the windows, and with the ancestors just stand behind these two. That's fine. And then stand behind these ones.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I go? In the middle, between your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
But also touching these. Support. And your guys' job is not to close your eyes, but to open your eyes and look out. To not be facing the dead, but facing your lives. Now, we use these words frequently. They're straight out of Bert Hellinger. They're quite lovely. They're worth remembering. But it's not always quite this pregnant, but it's really important to say them this time. Great-grandfather, since we started with you, I think you're the one who should say this. Someday you will join us.
Someday you will join us,
But not now.
but not now.
Not for a while.
Not for a while.
And then, nephew, I'm going to ask you to say this. And let me know how this feels. If it feels awful wrong or you need your aunt to say it instead. Yeah. Dear, we'll just say ancestors.
Dear ancestors,
Someday I will join you,
someday I will join you,
but not now.
but not now,
Not for a long while.
not for a long while.
In the meantime, look kindly upon me
In the meanwhile, look kindly upon me
until I join.
until I join you.
And will all the ancestors say, of course.
Of course.
We've got a big smile over here for those of you who can't see now. And Grace, you can just say amen. They'd like me to ditto.
Amen. Yeah.
So, nephew, how is that to stay? Because you're wrestling with mortality and some pull to join the dead. And
I was experiencing a lot of heaviness when it started.
Right?
As the dead rose and got behind me, it shifted.
Oh, yeah. That's why we need to do that move.
And now, and I said those words, and I tell you, it was like vibration, and I kind of felt like vibration all the way up through my body, like a tingling.
Awesome.
So it felt very resonant.
So one more time, just say, someday I will join you. We don't want to be death denying here, right? That doesn't work. I'll live forever.
Yeah.
Someday I will join you.
Someday I will join
Eyes
you.
open, looking forward,
Someday I will join you,
but not for a while.
but not for a while.
And everyone in the back say good.
Good.
Now, the last two, would you just come in as Grace's kids, adult children? Just be on the other side because she's also doing this on their behalf as well. Adult children. There we go. All the living facing the right direction. And yeah, just connect with all the kids, all the people. Yeah. Which one's older?
Justin, my son.
Okay, so this is the son, this is the daughter. And I'll just, for this is mostly for Grace right now to hear it. We'll have you all go through that little ritual, starting with this one. Just say, dear ancestors.
Dear ancestors,
Someday I will join you.
someday I will join you,
But not now,
but not now,
and not for a while.
not for a while.
Look upon me kindly as I stay for a while.
Look upon me kindly as I stay for a while,
Until I come.
until I come.
And everyone go, of course.
Of course.
And then the next one, dear ancestors,
Dear
I
ancestors,
will join you someday,
I will join you someday,
but not now and not for a while.
but not now and not for a while.
You get a nice little smile when you say that. It's really sweet. Please look upon me kindly as I stay for a while.
Please look upon me kindly as I stay for a while,
Until I join you.
till I join you.
Of course.
Those are very pleasurable words to say. Why don't you say them? Have fun saying them, right? Because they feel good in the body when you say them. They're worth saying. So, dear ancestors, I will join you eventually, but not now and not for a while.
Dear ancestors, I will join you eventually, but not right now, not for a while.
Please look upon me kindly as I stay for a while.
Please look upon me kindly as I stay for a while,
Until I join you.
till I join you.
Of course.
Yeah, it's really like,
I like that.
it's so hard to be the living. It really is. Being dead is so much easier. Yeah. So we need all the support we can, and we need to say yes to this thing. No, we can't just kind of drag our heels and say, oh, okay, I'll be alive. Yeah. And it actually makes us stronger in living when we acknowledge that we will join them eventually. And that's proper. Makes us all stronger. Okay? So Grace, this is for you and for your family. So to just take a moment, let this sink inside of you, feel it. And when you are ready, we'll let people sit down and we'll bring it to a close.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Nice teaching Constellation. Grace, come on over for a final ritual. You can take responsibility for that one. It might be Judith's from.
I would have done it. Thank you very good. Probably, if in doubt, it's mine.
So we'll just go this way. My name is fill in the blank. I represented fill in the blank. And for those of you who had more than one role, I'm not sure if that's the case for anyone here, but name them both. Yeah, that's what I thought. And you just say thank you.
My name is Kelly. I represented your lost great grand uncle.
Thank you.
My name is Christine. I represented your nephew.
Thank you.
My name is Anna. I represent your grandfather.
Thank you.
My name is Jinka and I represented the sun.
Thank you.
My name is Judith, and I represented Connection and your great-great-grandmother.
My name is Serena, and I represented you and
Thank you.
Yummy fest. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Okay, so just a few minutes of this. I want to, instead of just sort of open questioning, and I can, if you have questions, we can try and answer those. But let's just start out. What were some of the main orders of love that were disordered, and what were the corrections? One or two that you noticed. Exclusion, yeah. So the belonging, orders of love with respect to belonging. That's the main one, probably. Yeah.
Or between parent and son.
Yeah, there's a little seniority stuff we put into order. Yeah, and there's always something out of disorder for that. If we're presupposing that the client is entangled and therefore trying to put themselves in a position to heal the family. So they let Grace get. Grace and nephew are the living. We ordered the living and the dead. And that's kind of a. Okay. What were some main things that, like when we did them or we spoke them, a shift happened?
When the grandma opened up to the grandfather.
Yeah. And didn't judge him. Yeah. And I would have had to work with that because she could have come through with judgment. The role could have been saying, I hate him, I blame him, blah, blah. And I would have had to work with that a little bit. Often just saying the sentence softens the blame very quickly. If it arises like that, they'll go, oh yeah, that's right, I'm just blaming because I couldn't deal with how painful it was. Now that I'm including what is, honoring what is, by the way, is always the main Constellation movement. So at any rate, but yeah, her doing that was a big shift. It made you, the great grandfather, feel, guilt unresolved is it's nothing can move around it. It just jams up the works. Yeah. Okay, what else? What's another one?
I felt when father took my hand and mother took my hand, there was a very strong,
I've got them both.
group. Yeah, like we're together. That connection idea just felt completely embodied. And then when Grace stepped in to her role, it felt even like lighter and more like flow, like naturally flow.
And you reported that things felt heavy, but when we got the ancestors up and behind you,
It shifted.
that shifted something. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, maybe much smaller, but when I realized that this was my child, it was just amazement and delight about having another chance. You know?
Trying to manage or adapt to something that's too big to deal with, one way to do it is just, by the way, emotion. Yeah. And now there's a way to re-include it. Yeah. Okay. Memorable healing sentences.
Leave it with us.
Leave it with us. Yeah. Obviously, I had you do one 20 times at the end.
Yeah. Not now.
You can hear the German in that, look kindly upon us. How would that be literally in German? How Bert Hellinger would have said it. Because a lot of these sentences have funny phrasings because they're translations from German, but their formality feels good in the body. Back engineering is hard.
Yeah.
What is kindly, anyway?
Kind is be hard to
In a kind way. That's not a at the end.
What's that? Liebevoll?
I also remembered, what really struck me was it was hard for me and it was probably harder for you. The honoring of the great-grandfather's grief.
Yeah, so that's back to one of the important shifts.
Oh, rather than
Right.
healing sentence.
Right. What was there a healing sentence or
You
can
had
you remember the
great-grandmother
sentence?
say to great-grandfather,
Right.
it was hard for me, but it was harder for you.
Yeah. And that led to a shift. Got it. Yeah. So it's both folds. That's often a very the statements with a like. Oftentimes you'll have siblings where one's treated really well and one's bullied a lot by the parents or abused by the parents, and a sentence like "I was luckier than you were." Things like that can be very powerful. So the thans, yeah. Or if you had it harder than a sibling, for that role to turn to you and say, "You had it harder than me," or "I was luckier than you." Just naming it is really, it's very helpful.
In that one conversation that I've had now with my brother, I was using some of what you.
Right.
So I got to say to him, with our borderline mother, I was the designated all bad kid and he was the all good one. And it had dawned on me it's harder for him. And I said that to him on the phone. I think it was harder for you than it was for me. And that, but he didn't say anything back to it, but there was this long, I think that really landed with him.
Yeah.
It's not, I look like the one who got punished, but really, it was really hard for him.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Okay, the main entanglement.
The not acknowledgement of the child.
Right, that's the event. So entanglement, what is the thing that our client was trying to re-include in her own life and her symptoms?
Connection of the excluded.
Yeah. So she's basically trying to include the lost child and the break in the bond between the great-grandfather and the great-grandmother, because there's two things there. There's a loss that wasn't managed and it broke something in the relationship.
Is it also a loyalty?
That's an entanglement can be called a loyalty. Yep.
The loss that was not managed, and what was the second
The
one?
broken relationship between the great-grandfather and the great-grandmother as a result of not being able to grieve it. Okay, good. And then moments of field info, I already pointed out one, which is when someone looks at the ground and now you know you're dealing with someone who died. Okay, and in some sense, this was a great example of field info. We don't know if literally this all happened this way. It might be metaphors for something, but it's how it showed up that there was this thing. And every time I supplied a sentence, I mean, I really did it, especially with you, where I said, I'm building a theory here. It's not quite the way, really a story was arising in my heart. And I checked it with the representative and it landed about a child dying after the father had gone. Yeah? But that was arising. We didn't have that as a result of the interview. Okay. So other things, did you know, that was the big thing, but did you notice any other information come from the field that otherwise didn't come from the interview? I mean, there's lots of little things. I mean, in a sense, everything the representatives say and report.
I don't know if this goes with that, but it really struck me. I mean, it came up in my last constellation, the whole Catholic theme. And in this constellation, those words are so powerful in my family. The sacrifice of the eldest son is biblical. The I once was lost and now I'm found thing. Like in my family, those carry resonances that are super deep.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they're field information, but it just felt like really was vibrating me.
Yeah. Anything else show up in the, like, I'll give you another example, is that the great-grandfather having the nausea. That's field information. That guilt is showing up. Oh, we didn't have a guilt story here. We didn't have a transgression or a violation necessarily. No one went to jail for something. Yeah.
Also, it's so often when it feels irgendwie that if you digest something as a represented, something is coming up that you kind of need to birth or things like that.
That can often just be energy movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we're starting to move energy and integrate and shift things, people have different kinds of ways of manifesting that physiologically. And it can be getting a headache, it can be burping, it can be buberosity, all that sort of stuff. It just means something.
Really? I notice that as a representative sometimes when I think that things are shifting, then
Yep, exactly. Yep. Okay. So I wanted to pull these out for you a little bit. Yeah.
Are you deciding to change Judith's role from
Did not
connection
change.
to? Oh.
Didn't change. So let me give you a better example of this because connection's kind of a weird one to do. But I remember years and years and years ago, a client, I was in a constellation, I wasn't facilitating. And the client's issue was that he had rage that sometimes got him in trouble and he wanted help with it. And so, yay, I got to represent his anger. So that's an abstract concept like connection, right? It's not a person. And I'll just say that at some point in the constellation, it became clear to the facilitator that the anger was representing his father. Okay? And that all of his rage was actually, it was his father. And in this case, that his father was a closeted gay man who had never been able to live his life truly and out in the open. So the way in which the disorder of love was, around the father not being able to be himself and love whom he wants to love, right? And so a son, in honor entanglement of his father and to try and re-include him in everything he couldn't have, had his rage. So it wasn't that the facilitator changed me. It became clear that the anger was the father. Everything that I was doing was the father. We had just labeled it anger. And the true, like the true self, the true label began to emerge. Okay? So connection or disconnection, the pattern of with connection that we noticed in this interview that we put in here was the great-grandmother. Yeah? Make sense? Yeah?
It was very solid.
Because in the beginning, the very first thing she said made me think, oh, well, that's because you're an abstraction. That's why you're feeling it that way. But as soon as the dead one came in and she started to interact with the dead one, I went, oh, that's so a person. The role was acting like a person. The one on the floor was treating that one like a person in the reach for it. I mean, if I had said nothing and you looked at Judith and you looked at Kelly on the ground, you would have said, mother and dead child, because that's what it looked like. It's what it looked like. Yeah? Sorry, over here and then over there.
It was just because I interviewed Gracia before, and when I was looking at it and thinking about who would I set up, because before when you were looking at it, then you were saying, oh, we are getting too far up with everything.
Turtles all the way down, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt the same thing, and but then how did you? But then actually you took this,
Yeah, I went as far as she talked about, because I just decided, let's see what happens as far back as we've gone in the interview. Because the thing was going like. But what I said was that I know that something preceded him, something happened up here, but I'm not going to try and grab from up here because I don't know anything about it, and it's starting to get too far back, and so I brought him in. And in some sense, I was wrong. It wasn't something before him; it was something else around him. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought irgendwie alcoholic, and then alcoholic, and I thought, okay, there's irgendwie nothing.
Yeah, there's
but I
something
couldn't-
else up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's something that he was the origination point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I should have remembered the immigrant is often the origination point because immigration 9 times out of 10 is traumatizing. It's almost never a non-traumatizing event. The separation, the causes, the little funny blips that happen along the way, the people you left behind, the responsibilities you evaded, the world you ended up in where you didn't speak the language and no one treated you very well, you know, the various things that are part of this. So he's the immigrant, she is too, right? And so in hindsight, it does make sense. It's a decent theory if you got nothing else to work on and it kind of looks like this to set up the immigrant. Because there's often some trauma around that, even if it's just loss of home and land and people, which is pretty traumatizing. Yeah. Okay, so that was a damn yummy constellation. So I want to do a break now. Serena, we are not going to do you today because we're not going to do you justice.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do instead, we're going to have a break, and then in the last hour, I'm going to try and get to some of the subjects that I've skipped over or couldn't get to, so I don't have to worry about those tomorrow. And I'm going to do 3 constellations tomorrow, and everybody can have proper amount of time. Okay?
Okay.
Unless, by the way, no one's required, I got to go on the line. No one's required to have a constellation. If anyone is, no, I don't want one, that's fine too. But at this stage, I can't imagine anyone's in that place. But everyone's always at a choice around representing, being a client, being a facilitator, et cetera, et cetera. Okay?
You didn't have one?
No.
Okay. I was trying to count.
Yeah. Sound good? Come back at 5 please, in your seats. Can you give yourself? Scheduling is just, it's like pulling out fingernails. It's so hard to do. And I want to say, Kelly, you ran that meeting with a firm and loving hand. You didn't even, you need to be the organizing person. But I just didn't want you to do that on top of this.
Okay, I think we handled it.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
so grateful that it wasn't me.
So, true story. At the door, and the guy's at his computer, and she's clearly just asked something. And he says, "Honey, just a minute. Someone's wrong on the internet." That's so mean. And there, as you've seen on the bibliography, there's a number of really good Facebook groups on constellations that I really encourage you to join. So I was on one of them, and someone was wrong. And I knew Bert Hellinger had a quote. And but there's no index for love's in symmetry. So I'm looking through the book, and I'm trying to find it, and I'm trying to find it, and I can't find it. And I stumble back on primary and secondary emotions, which I had already read once, but I totally forgotten. And I started to read, and I went, oh my God, this is everything. It is everything. Okay? The nice thing about once you get a sense for primary and secondary emotions, you kind of can't unsee it anymore. It's one of those interventions that's actually not hard to put into place. A lot of these things I've been talking about require a lot of muscle memory and practice and seeing it again and again and again. Once you've got this, you can't unsee it. It's just got that quality to it. So, Bert Hellinger. Page 223 and 224, I have sent you that attachment. I didn't print it out. If you need it again, let me know. Yes, it's the stuff that I have all starred. Section called 224 and 225, excuse me. It actually goes on for a couple more pages, but the second 2 pages aren't nearly as, I feel like he gets off in some directions that aren't very useful. And the best thing here is to just kind of quote a little bit. Now, I just want to say for those of you who are from a clinical background or might Google this, psychology also has primary and secondary emotions, and they do not mean the same thing Bert Hellinger means by this. So that tends to be confusing. In Constellations, they're talking about how some feelings are primary emotions and some are secondary emotions. That is like, you know, anger is a primary emotion, but frustration is a secondary emotion. This is not what Bert Hellinger's doing. I just say that as a warning, because you may run into people who have different definitions of these things, or you see a definition somewhere and you're going like, this isn't what Leslie taught. Anyway, so I wish Hellinger had called it something else. It would have made things a little more useful. So, primary emotions. Primary feelings are simple and don't require elaborate description. They're intense without drama, without exaggeration. Primary feelings only go as far as is good. You won't do anything shameful if you're feeling a primary feeling. When primary feelings do emerge, everyone present naturally feels compassion, but also feels free to respond as is appropriate. I'm looking for the really key bits here about primary feelings. I'm not finding it because he's not systematic. So, oh, here we go. The main difference between primary and secondary feelings is that primary feelings support constructive action, while secondary feelings consume energy that could otherwise support change. Feelings that produce effective action strengthen people, while feelings that hinder effective action or justify not acting or substitute for effective action all weaken people. Primary feelings come, do their job, and go. Yeah? Hold off. I'm going to keep massaging this a little bit. Imagine a representative who says something like to another representative, "Fuck you." Yeah? And you go, "Whoa, Nelly, slow down there, representative. We're a PG Constellation space." And then you feel into it and you know a little bit of the story and you say, "Can you say this? When you left me, you broke my heart." Okay. Fuck you is a feeling. No, it's a feeling, right? Just doesn't help anything. Doesn't do anything. It keeps everything stuck and spinning and keep on going in the same state. As he puts it in here, secondary feelings, part of their hidden intention is to assert helplessness and victimhood and to keep things the way they are. Whereas primary feelings, name what is, strengthen, serve something, and move on. So, you're probably starting to go, "Oh, I do that thing that's secondary. Oh, I do that thing that's primary." You're starting to notice for yourself, right? A little bit, which is good. Why have secondary feelings at all then? Like, what's their point? Why don't we just have primary feelings? because things get stuck in trauma. And that's the nature of trauma, right? They repeat in an attempt to finish things, but actually reinforces it, right? So the Vietnam vet hears a car backfire and is now in the middle of battle again. It's a repeat. You know, the girl who's beat up by her dad keeps on having partners who beat her up. That's the repeat because something wasn't able to be finished back then or completed. And so it's a reach to complete something, but without the resources to do it, it just keeps on. Yeah. Another one of the references I've given you is Ursula Franca's. If you have a little bit more time, it's more like 10 or 20 pages. But holy crap, is it good stuff. And you find out the truth about therapists getting frustrated with their clients. Because she's a conventional psychotherapist and she's also a fine constellator. And she talks about how therapists get frustrated with clients who stay in secondary feelings because there's nothing you can do. There's just nothing you can do to help them. It is a self-reinforcing place. It spins and it spins and it spins. So there's the article is online, but it's excerpted from a book that you can get. It's a nice book. You'll see all the reference if you just look at the thing on your bibliography. She's an important German constellator. So the thing about secondary feelings is you can't do anything while the client or the representative or the constellation or you are in secondary feelings. You can't do anything. But if you can help shift it into primary feelings, then almost anything can happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the main tool? You've already learned it. Pace, pace, lead. Pace, pace, lead. You get in rapport and then lead to the next thing. That's how a well-delivered healing sentence functions. It doesn't say, no, you said the wrong thing. What I often say about the difference between primary and secondary emotions is that secondary emotions, this is from Zen Buddhism, are what is pointing at the moon, and the primary feelings are the moon itself. So if you listen to the primary emotions for the moon it's trying to point to, and then use the healing sentence to articulate the moon, yeah, then you're going to have an effective movement. Healing sentences are functionally a means to move from secondary to primary emotions. And then you get shifts and movements in your constellation.
Healing statements.
The healing sentences, remember we've talked about that, right? You know, like I see you, you are big and I am small, you know, all those things. Please look kindly upon me while I stay a while. Yeah, all that stuff. Increase dignity and strength. So, what it means is not that some emotions are primary and some are secondary, but that there is a primary anger and there's a secondary anger. There's a primary guilt and a secondary guilt. There's a primary sadness and a secondary sadness. There are flavors of each. There's a guilt that gives you dignity when you express it. Yeah? There is a guilt that when you express it is just going to keep you in this place forever. Mm-hmm. Everything's my fault and everything I did was wrong, and you're like, I don't want to even deal with you. Like as soon as that starts to come out, what he says is people move away. They may move close for a little bit to try and help, but eventually they're going to move away because there's nothing they can do to help. Whereas primary feelings draw people in. They're attractive. Yeah? Because there's something people can do. Yeah? And it gives you weight and strength. The other way he puts it is that primary feelings have a good, strong shame boundary. You can trust them. They're not going to take you somewhere that you're going to regret later. Who has ever regretted the emotions they have expressed? They've gotten too angry at the boss. They've gotten snippy with the kid. They whined too much with a friend, right? Whatever, right? And you regret it later and you feel bad and you wish you hadn't done that. Yeah? It doesn't have a good shame boundary. And you can't trust them to take them. I mean, you can feel that distrust of your own emotions. If I feel this emotion, I can't trust what it's going to do in me. But the other version of it, you can trust where it's going to take you and how it's going to support you and where you're going to go, which puts you in better rapport with yourself. So emotions are critical. We need to access emotions. We need to have emotions as part of our constellations. This is all a correction a little bit to two myths in our culture about emotions. One is the classic one, which is that emotions are trouble and only reason will get you where you want to go, right? So get rid of the emotions and think it through your rationality, your reasoning mind, yeah? And that makes sense to a certain extent because we can, again, remember times when emotions got us in big trouble, yeah? Or clouded something or fogged something, yeah? But that leads to what? Repression, a lot of repression. Yeah? The other end of the spectrum is the correction to that. Not common everywhere, but it's really common here, and I have to deal with it all the frigging time in my constellations, excuse me, but it does get frustrating sometimes. This myth, which is that there are no bad emotions and you should just feel whatever you're feeling, and whatever you're feeling, you should let it out there and let it be there. Yeah? Because it's a correction to that repression thing. So again, we understand it. But I cannot tell you how often I've kind of interrupted someone who's, you know, a representative who's kind of in some secondary emotions, and I'm trying to help redirect, and I sort of slow them down. You know, they've done a fuck you, and I say, whoa, 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 slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And they say, but it's just what I'm feeling. And that comes from this philosophy over here, yeah, that if I'm feeling it, then it needs to be expressed, and it'll be useful, and da-da-da-da-da, right? It's secondary emotions of what you're feeling, yeah? But underneath, there's something more important that it's actually veiling and keeping from being heard and seen. So it's not actually what you're feeling, actually. And I understand you don't have access to it in that moment. I'm going to help you. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to ask you to slow down, stop pointing in such a way towards that other representative because it's making the room. Because one of the things I'm, like I've said before on that range we started out with between kind of pure chaos versus too controlled, I'm really trying to make sure within some range, without just clamping down, that the space is safe enough for the unfolding of the client. And some clients are more resilient and some are more tender, yeah? And I'm not here to make a space for the representative to do whatever. If I feel like something's like this trauma energy is getting amped up by what the representative is doing, I feel really urgently I need to interrupt that. Not to exclude it, but to keep the trauma energy from continuing to do its thing and to find what's underneath it. Okay. So getting really skilled in first noticing, just being able to tell the difference between the two. Well, one of the things you'll notice here is that by and large, because of the tone I set, in this room, you guys don't tend to represent from your secondary emotions, by and large. Yeah? Just because it's part of the culture here. Yeah? So to notice the difference, and then how to move yourself as a facilitator from secondary to primary emotions. Because number one, you got to start in primary emotions as a facilitator. I'm not writing anything, so there's nothing for you to say. That's right. Number one. Number two, when you do the interview, to what degree can you help the client do it in primary emotions? Yeah. So if someone's really starting to get themselves rung up, you know, I might say, oh, can you put your feet on the ground? Can you feel your foot? Just slow down for a second. wow, that's a really strong feeling. By the way, that was feedback I wanted to give in some of the interviews. When someone gives you a particularly devastating piece of news, like, oh, the child died in the whatever, just a little moment of, oh, wow. It's not another piece of data point. It deserves a little mirroring. Not like, oh my God, you poor ancestors, right? That's secondary emotions. Yeah, they're just like, oh wow, that was so painful for your grandmother. And so acknowledging these moments, but doing it in a primary emotion kind of a way. You see me tear up. You see me have feelings here as a facilitator. And I'm mirroring, I'm role modeling primary emotions. Yeah. I'm letting myself have access. Now, it's easier for me because it's not my system, right? But it's a useful resource for them. Yeah. So help them be in primary emotions. And if this tip is worth the price of entry to this course, a constellation started in secondary emotions is 20 times harder than a constellation started in primary emotions. They're like molasses. They are so hard to move. Yeah. Because you just have all these things going. It's just, and by that I don't mean there's a lot of chaos going on. It may be very quiet. It may be not much energy, but there's just a lot of self-referencing emotion that never quite, you can't find the leverage. Yeah. So the tools for moving to primary emotions, I've named a bunch of them, right? In constellations, healing sentences is your number one tool. But all the rest of the tools actually do that as well. Like if you have the parent on the ground next to the dead, just sitting on the ground, and the child standing, and you're like, this isn't right. That's a violation of the order of love, right? Would you please stand up and you please sit down? Oh, that feels better. Yeah. Sometimes, very often, it's very counterintuitive. Someone's like, I don't want to look at this one. I don't want to look at this one. 9 times out of 10, you say, well, just take a look. You go, oh, it's not as bad. Oh, I see you now. Yeah. So sometimes the looking into the eyes. All these tools and tricks you'll be learning more and more about. Yeah. Serve multiple purposes, but including moving it into primary. One kind of direct to the consciousness move. If the great difficulty with representatives is that 99 times out of 100, what they have first access to is secondary emotions. That's what they've got available to report to you. Yeah, the representative. Yeah, so they step into dad and they feel all of this shame and guilt and or whatever it is, right? I mean, this is your example here. Those were secondary emotions to start out with.
Which was the example?
The great-great-grandfather.
Being
nauseous and guilty, and that collapsing thing he was doing. Yeah.
Oh.
Those were all. That's all. That's not going to take. I mean, it's information, but that's not going to go anywhere. That's going to do anything useful for the client. Yeah. But it's all fingers pointing to the moon, so it is useful. That's what usually we have access to first. Some very advanced representatives go straight to the underneath, which is awesome. It's really great. But one very simple conscious way to do it is just say, okay, I hear there's some guilt here, and you're looking like you want to collapse, and you said you wanted to be invisible. Yeah. What's underneath all that? That sometimes works, doesn't always. Works better with more advanced representatives. But sometimes it works. They're like, oh, I'm missing somebody or whatever it is. Yeah, they'll come up with something. Yeah, what's underneath that?
What's the difference between that and starting that constellation started?
So you start the constellation. If you and the client and the kind of the field around you and the client start in primary emotions,
Mhm.
that's better for everything that happens.
You
That
define it.
doesn't mean that secondary emotions aren't going to arise.
Mhm.
It's just if you like your first thing, like please choose your mother and your father. If all of that's happening inside of primary emotions,
Mhm. Mhm.
if the client is still cycling around their feelings as you're asking them to choose their mother and their father,
Mhm.
if they're not in their dignity and in their strength, and sometimes I'll just like, if I see them kind of, hey, you're getting your constellation done. You've waited 2 months for it, right? You're like, oh, right? And I'll just say for a moment, feel your feet and feel your dignity and your weight. I'll actually use that language.
Mhm.
People kind of get, even if they've never heard it talked about that way, they'll go, oh, okay. But, I might say, feel your weight with respect to all that stuff we talked about. And they know, they kind of have a move inside they can make. Think about something right now that you tend to spin yourself out of around. A particular person who triggers you, that's always good. A coworker, or I've got someone on Facebook I've got a ridiculous trigger thing going on with. It's so stupid. Yeah. So think about one of these things that you spin yourself around on, and then just listen to the instruction of find your weight in that. Notice what happens in your body when some part of you knows how to follow that instruction. It's a little bit of hypnotic languaging. It's a little trance-inducing. It goes straight by, like, what does that mean? It goes right past that into someone goes, oh, okay. And you can feel something shift in their energy. And the more you don't baby them and you don't handhold them and you don't, we're going to get to the orders of love, orders of helping, which will help with this a great deal. But you're not treating them like a victim. You're seeing their dignity. You're seeing their parents, thanking their parents for their lives, not trying to rescue them. This all encourages primary states in ourselves and in them. And if you're running any performance anxiety, it still happens to me a lot, like that moment in the constellation where I don't know what to do, and all of a sudden I go, what if it never works and the client hates me? I have these moments, right? I just go, okay, I'm having that feeling. I'm worried about that. Okay. I'm not going to resist or make it go away, or I'm going to just like, okay, that's something facilitators feel. You had your hand up.
Is it basically a trigger?
Is it basically what?
A trigger, something that triggers you? Like when you're like, oh, I'm triggered, does that pretty much mean you're in secondary?
Triggers are secondary emotions.
Yeah.
I don't think every instance of secondary emotions you would associate with the sense of being triggered.
But a trigger is.
A trigger is definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, trigger, that's by the very nature of the beast.
Right.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So could a secondary be an interpretation of the primary, or is it not what it is?
Yeah, that sounds a little too, interpretation sounds to me like there's some left brain thing going on there, and it's mostly, it's going straight to amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
This is the fight, flight, freeze stuff.
Yeah, so more what the primary sets out. In the secondary is the primary is the source, and the secondary is all the feelings that are.
It's all of the
from
managing of that core. Yeah. When you didn't have access to any way to properly feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one way, for instance,
kind of the symptoms.
Yeah. Okay. So one way, let's say I am guilty with respect to this one. I did something wrong or whatever. One way to manage that is to fall into blame. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your fault. Right? And just instead of, so we could understand secondary emotions as a dysfunctional way to manage a primary emotion that for whatever reason at the time was not workable, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's might be the way I might put it. It's a set of management, but dysfunctional attempts to manage and adapt. often influenced by whatever the habits of the family around this stuff were. Right? So if all of you dealt with sadness by becoming enraged, you're probably going to do that too, right? Or sadness dealt by making light of things, you know. So there's tends to be habitual secondary emotion patterns in your families that children are very vulnerable to.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, Kelly had another one of those moments of recognition over there, and she made the noise.
It's intriguing that it's like the secondary emotions themselves can have a pattern that get handed down. Not like the wasting of energy has a pattern that gets.
And the way Sarah Payton, who is really into the neuroscience of all this stuff, she talks about how the child comes equipped with all emotions. You got them all available. The brain can do them all. But in childhood, you know, mother comes there with her face and the emotions that mother can register. And basically after a while, what the baby is trying to figure out is what connects me with mama? What keeps the connection? What keeps the flow happening here? Because of course I needed to have my diapers changed and food and love and all that stuff. So if all mama does is sadness, and the only way to stay in relationship with mama is sadness, then I'm going to learn to delete all the other ways of, you know, putting my face, which is the way we feel things. Hold on a second. So I've deleted out all the others, but I'm still having those feelings. I still have anger, for instance. But the only way I'm now neurologically allowed to have it or able to have it is by expressing sadness. Who here cries when you're mad? Yeah. So this is just a for instance. It could be other ways, like the way to keep, you know, mama's really sad, but the only way she stays in connection with you if you're always happy. Yeah, so it could be a mirroring, or it could be I do what mama doesn't do, but whatever it is, you're making sure you are able to do what keeps you connected with your caregiver. Yeah. And this is going to work into all this stuff. Yeah. Okay. So I raise this not as a like a technique, no, or anything like that. This is a framework. This is critical business because constellations have so many raw emotions in them. By the very nature of what they are, you have to be comfortable hanging out with these emotions, and you need some ways of identifying when the emotions are in service to the movement and when they're not in service to the movement. And this is the best framework I have found for being able to talk about this with people. And the added bonus is that it's personally been very helpful to me. When I start spinning around and I go, oh, I'm in my secondary emotions about that thing. What's underneath that? What's going on? What's the moon? Right? Yeah. Okay.
It's not so easy. I mean, I can.
Oh, it isn't.
I have tried.
I mean, you got to get your heart rate down.
I notice my secondary emotions, but I still stay in them. I, you know, it takes time to, even though I notice them.
You can get more quick at it. The more you do it.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. This is very, very important. I've used this word rapport a lot, being rapport with a client. That's so important, right? But there's a nice, like, extra thing here, which is that means not only rapport with others, but self-rapport is important. Like, do we experience self as of like kind or as a potential predator? Right? This arises in the old saying that I use a lot. Can anyone finish it?
Yeah.
So if you're having secondary feelings, don't resist them.
Yeah.
That's really key. What is our constellation move for anything? Include. Oh, I'm wigging myself right out now about that guy on Facebook who I actually barely know. Okay. I really want it. That's the experience I'm having right now. That actually gives you a little bit of breathing room. Because that part of you for whom wigging out about that guy is really important and life-saving and critical isn't being made alien to you. It isn't being made wrong or, it's being like, oh, no, there's part of me that's trying to take care of me by having this experience right now. So we include. That tends to help with all the other management stuff we have hopefully learned in other, mindfulness, breathing, put it aside for a while and come back to it later, when we're more resourceful, get away from the thing that's triggering you, whatever things you do to help you get back to being resourceful.
Or express it, like go someplace.
Sort of. I don't buy the whacking the pillow with the bataka bat thing. I don't think that I have no experience that actually does very much. I know there's some sense that it's cathartic and it releases and da-da-da-da-da. But if it's being done in secondary emotions, I'm super skeptical that it actually does what they say it does. Now, if you're doing these things, I heard a great one on the radio when I was driving around. This was amazing. It was amazing. This is a perfect example of this. Long story short, this guy is talking about this very weird example. He's an African-American young man who's brought by his father on a plantation tour in the South. Yeah. And he can't friggin' figure out why his father is doing this. And he's noticing all these things that are completely offensive and denying of his people's experience. And he's telling the story. And it's just amazing. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And at one point, he and the father kind of wander off a little bit. And he's like, Dad, I'm like, what are we doing here? This is crazy. And his father turns to him and says, son, spit at it. He's like, what? That's gross. I'm not doing that. Someone may be looking. And so the father hawks up a big loogie and spits at the plantation. And he says, I felt something different in my body. Because I mean, you can feel it right now as I tell this story. It sounds like secondary emotions, but it isn't. It's like,
it's gravity.
It's the only correct response, and it acknowledges all these things that this tour is just like going la 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 about, right? And so he feels a little better, and he's like, he looks around, I'm sure nobody's looking. He's 18 or something, and he spits, and he says, I felt free. I was like, okay. This is the sort of thing, the right ritual action, the right movement in our body. Sometimes it's not sitting down and thinking about it. What's underneath this? Maybe I need to go change, I need to go out on the deck, look at a beautiful plant and say, tell me what's true here. I don't know what your thing is. But we need to find something that actually grounds the soul, connects with the soul. Yeah. And these management things are fine. They're great. But what we actually need is like, when I was doing primary emotions my first day here, I was so nervous about this class. I was really getting myself ramped up. Felt secure and happy, and I'm glad to see all you. So I've been having an altar the Constellation, and I'll tell you about those later, for this event for the last several months. It's time to dismantle it now that the class has started. But this represented me in that constellation. And it just kept me close. And it's wacky. It's done the trick. It's made me in myself. I'm like, here with me. This is better than me thinking about it and trying to figure out how to manage my feelings. Leslie, just calm yourself down. Everything's going to be fine. You've prepared yourself really, really well. You're ready. Yeah. And I haven't even had to think about it. It's just right there being friendly to me. It's doing all the work. Right? It's not even that I see it once in a while. It's like, it's a nice little rock. And when it's all done, I'll just go back to being a rock. Right? No? So these are the movements. This is why we need ritual, why we need these soulful moments. It's, yeah. And it's connected to the borderline stuff. It's connected to the immigrant trauma stuff. It's connected to the manifest destiny and always pushing forward and the myth of individualism. We're all trying to figure it out on our own, and we're all kind of desperate in a field of desperation. And we need these things. Yeah. I seem to have caught something in Anna. Yeah. So, and this is what it is our job to help our groups do. Because they're arriving all discombobulated and fragmented and disconnected from themselves. And they cannot support the clients if they're doing it from that place. And we cannot support the client if we're not doing some primary emotion hygiene on ourselves. I will let you know, before Rouge Mondier, I've interviewed 2 clients. There's going to be 2 clients. I know who they are. I spend some time thinking about how I'm going to start the constellation. And on the drive there, I have a ritual, which is that I do one at a time. Let's just say it's Anna is one of my clients, and I'll just bring Anna and her issue and her system to my heart. And I just check, is there anything, like, oh, I'm having a reaction to that. Oh, I'm feeling scared, whatever it is, yeah? Or it's fine, feels good, excellent, right? If there's anything other than, this is fine, this feels great, can't wait to do this constellation, then I'll just do a little like bow to Anna's family and her issue, just until I can feel it settle in myself and I don't have any attachment, I don't have any reaction, I don't have any need, and I can just, particularly if there's something really gnarly up someone's lineage, like I need to do some bowing, and then I'll do the second person. I always do that beforehand because I've got myself in trouble. Okay, so that's primary and secondary emotions. We have just enough time. I was thinking, should I do another subject, but we don't have time for that. So instead, we're going to do a final little, you're going to have modeled another little exercise before you leave, okay? And it's going to be 2 groups of 2, 1 group of 3. Remember to mix it up a little bit. If there's someone you've been working with a lot, try somebody else. Here's the exercise. So I want you to think about something like I've been thinking about this person that I'm very curious about. I might do, actually, well, let's do 4 groups of 2 and I'll partner with somebody. I don't need to manage this. You guys are good on your own. And this situation with this Facebook guy who seems to trigger me for no reason whatsoever. Self-righteous asshole. Secondary feelings.
I never feel that way about anybody.
Okay, so you're going to be you. Okay. Now, you can either do this completely blind or you can tell the other person what the situation is that sort of triggers you or you want to look at. If you do tell them what it is, please don't get into a lot of story. Just say, there's this guy on Facebook and he triggers me and I want to look at that. Done. Okay? Please, really, really simple. And then the other person is going to have 2 stations. First, they're going to step into this situation in secondary emotions. Now remember, you are both representing. So this is just the situation, this thing with the Facebook guy, the secondary emotions I seem to have about that. Okay?
The circle is.
No, the square is right here.
Okay.
You're you.
Okay, got it.
You are you.
Oh, the other person.
This is say the client.
Okay.
This is self. Okay, you're just being yourself.
Mhm.
So the other person steps into this spot.
Mhm.
Okay? And you report out to each other. I'm feeling really cranky and I want to cry and never stop crying. And if I had a nuclear bomb, I might set it off. Right? Yeah. And you say, wow, you really scare me, but and I want to move away a little bit. So you both just remember from yesterday, you're representing yourself. Report out. Okay? But notice what this is like. And then this person is going to step off of that one and into the second spot. And this is going to be the situation. It's primary emotions. Okay. Yeah. And just get a sense of the difference between these two. It's like your English essay in high school, your German essay and Bulgarian essay. Compare and contrast the two characters from Huckleberry Finn, or whatever, the compare and contrast essay. You want to compare and contrast these. Now, we have all kinds of expectations that somehow this is going to be a certain kind of way and this is going to be a certain kind of way. But I want to share one example, because I've done this now with a bunch of people in different situations, and it's amazing. For one guy, I don't remember what the situation was, not important what the situation was, but the representative stepped into secondary emotions. I'll do it like so. The person standing there.
Sorry, but is it the secondary emotion from the client or from the? It's so from the client.
Oh yeah, that's the only ones that count.
Yeah.
Because this could be a situation that doesn't involve another person. It could be looking at your closet and going, "Why can't I organize you?
Okay.
I'm going to go have a drink instead." Right? In fact, I did have someone do their cluttered closet because it triggered them so much. Okay? It could be any situation. It's your emotional states about it. Okay? So client is standing there. Let me do some things here just so that you can see. So the client is standing here facing me. This is the position for secondary emotions. This is the position for primary emotions. Okay? I am the other person in the constellation, being a representative. I'm going to step into secondary emotions for this person's situation. This is what happened once, okay? They got down on the ground, and they laid down, and they went, "It's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair." Okay? Yeah? So what did they expect? What do you expect is, just for a moment, tell me what you expect will happen over there.
Calm person standing up.
And saying or feeling what?
Anger.
I'm really angry.
Frustration.
Hurt.
Yeah. But a lot of people expect is that over here they're going to be like, "I'm fine." Right? But what happened over here was, it's not fair. It's not fair. Same language, totally different vibe. I'll give another example of one. This one over here went, "I'm out of here," and just booked. They walked out. This one stood over here, and this one is expecting this one is going to be like steady and whatever. This one said, "I need to leave this situation." Yeah. So often when we know we're triggered, we think the answer to it is the opposite emotion. Like I have to, like the answer to this is staying in and not leaving or whatever, right? It's that what we resist persists tendency we have. But the answer this one, again, is the finger pointing to the moon. Yeah? But this, "I'm out of here," probably means you're never going to leave and you're going to have to continue and endure the damn thing and da-da-da-da, right? And by the way, as I go, and you're going to burn a lot of bridges and have to pay for it later, right? Although I need to get out of this situation. Okay? Okay. Pairs, about 5 minutes each.
So
don't take a lot of time.
Choose something simple. It doesn't matter.
Something discreet
Okay.
is the way I would
Okay.
put it.
Okay. Okay.
But
You know,
discuss with
something
the-
that's size to it. It can be deep and heavy and big and important.
And do we say anything to the other?
No, you just report out to
Okay.
each other a little bit. So you over there might have feelings about, you know, you scare me, just report out to each other a little bit. But it's for you to understand the difference between these two values.
Sorry.
What I said in the beginning is you can
Okay.
either keep it blind, or you can share it, but if you share it, just like in a sentence.
So you're gonna, I'm not in anything.
People get into this, well, there's the situation, and the brother, and the sister, and the
So basically,
I'm gonna fight with my brother, and I can't seem to get out of it. Okay?
if I say any more than that,
Maybe just like step in and connect with what are you.
So 5 minutes each.
setting my
Kelly's gonna come over and do it with me.
he basically
Excellent.
treated
Apparently.
like
Yes, I am.
like not treating like
So I think it's not for what he does, but like something for you. What do you experience? What do you feel? What do you?
Okay.
I feel
So what's your situation that you would like to look at? If you need to think about it, obviously I have mine teed up.
Yeah.
I feel like
let's do
he
Okay.
is telling a story
So
about me
it's the
that's not
situation
me.
of this gentleman on Facebook.
Okay.
If that
So
makes
just
sense.
choose a spot that's
Like
the
he doesn't know
secondary,
me,
choose a spot
but
that's
he
the
thinks
primary.
Okay.
And you let me
Okay,
know
so
when
you
you're ready.
feel, sounds like it's feel like not seen and
Fuck you, I can't stand it. Jesus Christ, why are you opening your mouth all the fucking time?
kind of thing. Okay.
I just literally cannot, you're
Okay,
ruining my
so-
space.
Instead of speaking for that, what's the experience?
Franticness, really,
Really,
so,
so
I mean,
aware.
I don't even
Okay.
know what to do with
So,
this kind of thing. Frustration and, a true sense of urgency.
Oh yeah, I just feel
Like,
super
really,
frustrated. Like
I just,
I really want to go gossip about him. Like he
Interested in
just
from here,
totally
also
doesn't
feels
get
like
me.
you're
Like
feeling-
you know,
feeling
it's
like,
yeah, I feel
almost like
just
your
really
space
misunderstood. He
between
totally doesn't get me. I don't even know why I work here.
yeah.
Like it's just no
like,
fun.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Is that
It's just this like kind of like,
Well, fuck you. What's your fucking problem? Like,
why would you? Yeah, I just want push. I need this cleared up.
As soon as I got here, I
Clear the
felt
space.
like sad.
Yeah, I really need you.
Yeah, I feel.
so what's really interesting is that it's basically experience of me in secondary emotions is, that's really unpleasant to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was
I mean,
feeling.
like, I would like
Yeah.
coffee with you for 2
I literally feel like I just
Okay.
feel like, like you know, when you just want, you walk in the room
That's
and you
really,
expect
that's
everybody
really
to,
unpleasant to be around. Sounds
you
like
know,
primary
like intimacy or whatever.
No, I'm just reporting out what you're used right now.
Okay.
I don't want to be around.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one.
Me that react.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh,
this is me.
okay. Yeah, right, I understand,
Because you're not
yes.
him, you're me.
This is
Right,
like a
no,
friend of
and
mine.
I'm
I was
just like-
just maid of honor in her wedding. And
So I
she
imagine
fuck at
in
me.
this state, people don't want to be around me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just really jangly.
Yeah, so
And
seeing
really kind of
myself,
like,
I want it.
I feel used.
just above this.
And if you
Yeah,
haven't
like
stepped
I
off of
I
the
think she feels
primary motion,
entitled
the secondary motion yet,
to
finish that up.
my
This is a real quick
energy and
exercise.
being without
Move into
awareness.
the primary motion.
How dare you?
Mm.
It's not.
I'm so sad.
Oh, you're good.
I'm sad you feel this way.
It's so easily enrolled in that.
Lost.
Yeah, say more.
it's not right.
Okay. Let's trade places. Okay.
I actually feel like I'm mourning something lost.
Because it's not that
There's a
I'm
person.
just like, getting into it. Like
I'm
Not
sad.
my work. I
I'm
don't
just sad.
have to work with her.
Why
but
can't you
she's
just-
in my department. We do something.
definitely feeling
She's
just
the
this
one. I never know. I either avoid or I try to say
almost
something to
disdain.
Maybe a little
Like-
endangered
And that's, I
too.
feel like a heavy.
Maybe. Like I feel,
I don't
I
know who
mainly
you think
feel
you are.
sad, but there's also
Mhm.
like,
But I keep moving.
this could lead to an
And-
alarm. Yeah, this could lead to something
I
bad.
would like to have a
What makes you entitled?
Yeah.
for myself.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I keep-
Whereas over here, I'm getting
Uh, powerlessness.
Oh, interesting.
There's a powerlessness there. I don't feel like.
Thank you.
It's like
Thank you.
Yeah.
So wrap up the first
I
round
just feel like
and switch
feel like
positions.
tingly all over. It's like
And you know, it may not be the world's most
I never thought you would treat me this way. It's
earth-shaking constellation.
yeah.
It's just a little insight.
abandoned.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So what's your
Yeah.
situation that you
I'm
want
feeling like abandoned. Like
notice?
Or did you choose to do that?
You suspect you're hanging out a little bit more in
And
secondary
that's like-
feelings. And as
I wish you
a
could
test, you might want to try it blind and then tell me afterwards.
Or do your job.
Oh, not tell you what it is? Okay.
Or not.
Okay, let's do that. That sounds like
biased.
fun.
Whatever.
But I have to.
You decide on it still.
Yeah. Oops.
Anyway, all right. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
feeling used
I'm sorry.
and
Okay. I think I've got the situation.
cheated.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
cheated.
Yes.
So I'm going to stand here just because it
Yeah,
hasn't been
that's good.
spoken. Just touch my shoulder and say me and the secondary emotions of the situation.
Having a mirror that made me aware. I've just been super judgy with her, like, and with myself. Like, give her a break. She's a bride. It's her day, you know. Like,
Right.
but when you were mirroring that, I was thinking, like, oh, yeah, it's really like there's so much love between us. She really is a close friend. And in these moments that she gets like that, I do feel like we lost
Ready to
this.
drive
You know,
the
kind of
tank
where'd you go?
through the
Right.
You know?
brick wall.
I just heard her say that this is an interesting experiment to do it blind, like for the person who's the client, not say anything about the situation, and then see if the other one picks up
If there's a
appropriate.
sentence in
Yeah.
here, it's almost, I'm going to break it before it breaks me.
And I'm super distracted by this because that is so pretty.
Thank you.
There's a little bit of
These-
performance in
is that
there, so I
Labrador
might be trying to
That is
convince
smoky.
somebody
Oh,
of
smoky
something.
quartz.
Yep, that's Ruffinite.
Oh, that's stone. That's gorgeous.
Solid Russia.
It's you myself.
That's my favorite. Yeah, I love it.
Holy shit!
I found
out
it.
here.
Like, I don't know. I do a lot of
all my
stuff,
muscles
so
are
I
connected,
drink
like,
pictures of it. It's a shop and stuff.
they're permanently
And like,
connected.
I found it like maybe 3 years ago, and I just
It's like the constant, you know, when you do the in karate, you really tighten up.
Yeah.
So pretty.
Yeah.
But
Did you make this?
doesn't release again.
But you're,
So that's the thing.
discovered the
Okay.
stone.
So if you haven't finished the first primary, the secondary motion in the second constellation, move on to the primary motion of the second constellation.
Sharp pupils. Clearly.
Do I need to touch
How are you feeling about entering, you know,
Utmost I wanted to
get something in, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have a lot
This is a little
to,
weird, because this is like,
Yeah.
you touch me, and I touch you.
but it's definitely,
And then it's
Yeah.
fine.
No, I get it.
I just, I'm really, I hope I can keep up.
Yeah.
Like,
I do. It's a lot. When you said you had a 9-month-old, it's like, that's what you take home with a 9-month-old.
yeah.
And then that's even before all the other.
Better than I am.
Right.
It's not so secondary, you know?
I know I'm trying to, like, right now, it's like, even though my mom's been, you know, even before the handbrake, we were in an RV trip, and we went to Santa Fe, because we were looking at.
You're a
Yeah, he's super dressed up. And,
Go back over here, probably.
I met with
I would.
I want some of the
It was so interesting, and I had my mom with her. A lot of
The
what I
touch is
got was,
an
you know, like,
important part of this.
you know,
It's not just a metaphor.
Okay.
how
It's some other person.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yourself, there's something a longing for,
you and your mom.
something about touch.
You know, like, even though it's like,
Yeah.
like, take that.
It's a little
Just get, you know, someone to help you and all of that. And I was like, yeah, no problem, you know, so I started to do that, but then,
Oh, I want to be kinder to my heart.
and then, you know, so, but now it's something a little bit more heavier than what I was, more time than I was thinking. So,
Yeah.
it'll work out.
Yeah, it will.
and he's amazing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. They're so cute at that age.
And my mom's just so obsessed with him. So
Of course.
I think that's the worst part. Like she's
It's not as
almost
simple as my.
just a pain to deal with right now because she's so frustrated because she's not able to like do stuff for him. Like she's not as easy to think about. And it's not like we're like the cast was like
And the contrast here.
Yeah, it really doesn't feel like you can trade them.
so we're like we've been wrapping it up in like these bandages and stuff, so it's all
Protected.
you know, so she can kind of at least like pick them up and it feels
frustrating,
you know.
yeah.
And
Yeah, that
so
makes sense.
Over there, it's like hardness to be protected and safe. Out here,
it's
it's
just
It's
really
cold.
Okay.
places, the veil of protection.
Now I have to take care of you around that too.
I think I can tell you.
So my daughter who's
Yeah.
30 just
So start to wrap this up, please.
they really want kids quickly.
The situation was, I would like always rushing.
I mean, I've never said that to him before. Like I'm not doing that.
But trying to get there and give me on time, and I've got a lot of things to do. So I'm always really like driving and like, you know,
I don't mind.
like that was pretty much.
Oh.
The tank was perfect into the wall. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. And it is very hard. Yeah, it is very hard. And then the primary is interesting because I feel like it's like I'm trying to like cover up some emptiness that's, you know, like I'm trying to keep myself busy and maybe veiling.
You actually need veiling.
I need
Oh,
I need some veiling.
Oh yeah, and it's
Oh, I thought it was
positive
trying
thing.
to get myself using that as a smoke screen.
No. This is secondary motion need protection. Here's primary motion need protection.
Oh, and that's what that situation's providing for me.
Like it's pointing to needing protection.
Okay.
This doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh.
Right?
Oh.
Secondary
Okay.
motions make sure you never get what you need.
Okay.
Right?
Oh. Okay.
Right.
This is getting me more. Yeah. Yeah.
There's the need for the again it's
Yeah.
really sweet. Like I'm looking for
Okay.
It's quite sweet and soft and
Caring.
very effective.
Self-caring.
And very effective in terms of the need protection.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, we need to regather. Flash those to the people that did on time. Always.
Yeah.
You should be so lucky. Ooh, that sounded like it hurt.
Do we have permission to go to a quarter after?
Yes. Okay.
So, review of the day.
Yeah, I do have to go.
Oh, you really have to go?
Yeah.
Okay, one word before you have to go. Let's take a moment, recover yourself. What's the word?
Gratitude.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to keep you 4 minutes late, and see you in the morning. Excellent. Good to see you, Christine. And we're just gonna do this little bit of stuff at the end. I try to end on time.
Yeah.
Don't
Now
I
I just have
succeed?
to pick up my dog at 7 in San Ramon. So.
Go for it. Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, so glad you made it, Christine.
So review of the day, and you can listen to this as you're gathering yourself up. I can't look at my outline to remember. Well, we did most of the interviewing. We haven't reported them all out yet. We'll do that tomorrow. But we finished, we heard some interviews. We discussed them. We did some more interviews. That was basically the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the afternoon, we did Grace's Constellation, and we did a lot of housekeeping and figured out about study groups, and you did good work on study groups. And then we learned about primary and secondary motions. So in a very short sentence, your takeaway for the day? As you remember all that? Include. Oh, you even went to the one word. There you go.
I wonder what's underneath that.
For me, it's embracing all of you and everything else.
Bye, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Christine.
I was gonna say rapport.
Self-rapport is the nuance today on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a weight.
Yeah.
Feel your weight.
Put your feet on the ground as you say that. She's doing this little thing here. Yeah. Say it again with your feet on the ground.
Feel your weight.
There you go. Yeah.
Something around just the beauty of like feminine energy and love that is so welcoming and nurturing. Delicious. It's really, really nice.
Even as we nod to the men.
Yeah, I was gonna say, along
Yes.
with seeing those fathers, and feeling my nephew and all that, I'm feeling a new appreciation for the masculine and the pain that can play out in the masculine.
Particularly, I do think recovering, because we grind it out and repress it in our culture, but the pain of fatherhood. And that fathers feel grief.
Yes.
Yeah. And for the women to honor that, the mothers to honor that, and the fathers. But the women are not the only ones who feel the grief of loss of children. Something we don't do super well in our culture. So yeah, thank you. Okay, who's our person? Anne.
Me?
Anna.
No, I thought that I had signed up for the morning. Actually, it's what I was going to do, but maybe I fix it up. Because I wanted to do like a cappuccino, a really small one, but we kind of did one right now. And I was thinking to group up in two and ask the other person to feel into a talent that wants to be seen. So you are my talent that wants to be seen.
Okay.
And like a 2 minute just without words. 2 or 3 minutes.
If it's without words, how does the person know what the talent is?
It's kind of like with
the way you move your body. Okay.
Like mimicking somehow, just
Silent
like body
gesture
language.
movement.
Okay.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay.
1 minute each. Sure.
Would you like to do it, Leslie?
Oh, no. You guys it makes the math easier.
Okay, you want to start? So you're going to do gestures, and I'm going to try to figure out what the talent is.
And I think I would recommend that you stand up.
Oh, okay.
And it's not figuring anything out.
No.
Yeah.
So just imagine that Grace and I were doing this. Yeah, and I might start.
And then just receive.
And she just receives it.
So just go there and you just say, you are my talent that would like to be seen.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. Oh, so this person's representing my talent.
Exactly.
Oh,
I am.
Yes.
So it's not me showing you my.
Oh, okay, got it.
I'm gonna think of it.
You don't even have to think of it. Just let it come through the field.
I guess I have to know where it might be.
No, you don't actually.
Excellent.
The voice can do all that work. Totally right-brained. Don't try and make too much sense out of this. This is real gestalty stuff. Another 30 seconds if you're not done yet. Then bring that to a close. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm the talent that wants to be seen. I represented your talent.
There you go.
I'm going to represent your talent.
Was that what we're supposed to say?
Yeah. You want to start out with that, but just turn around, just switch spots. And no, there you go, there you go. And then Kelly, you just put it on hands on her shoulders and said, "You are the talent, my talent that wants to succeed."
You are my talent that wants to receive.
There you go. Another 30 seconds for this.
It's okay. It felt right. Yeah. There's something was like,
And wrap that up.
now you say, right? Or does it matter? Okay. That was awesome. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay, everybody.
Okay.
By the way, that was lovely to watch. It was kind of nice to watch from the outside.
It was super.
Yeah. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, very.
Anna, yeah.
Amazing.
Good one.
Goodbye.
Get back.
See you at 9:45 tomorrow.
Okay.